Is there still no sound? Okay, all right. I have two mics and I had the other one hooked up, so all right. All right then. All right, so got some pretty good representation here. I got a pin from like half an hour ago, so I'm going to put this one up. It comes from a guy named Rustam, I believe, and he's from Russia, and his pin is going to go over here in Carmel. All right, so this is the map that I've been doing for the past couple years. And what this is, if you're unfamiliar with it, viewers of the channel can support by, for $5 you can put a pin on the spot where they can live, and they can live anywhere they want. So this has been what I've been working on the past couple years. So I'm going to just go over some of the general trends, and then back this up a little bit. Go over some of the general trends, and then I'll talk about some of the more interesting pins, and then go in some questions after that. But let's see. All right. So when I've done stuff like this before, where I go along the map, I always seem to skip someplace. It's usually Iowa. So I'm going to just do the states alphabetically. And the last time I did this, a few folks were a little upset because I didn't go, this is John Smith's, this is Mary Jones. I can't do that individually with all of them, so I'm going to go over some general trends, and then some of the more interesting ones. So I'm going to go to the states alphabetically. Alabama here, all of these are old. There's 4 here. They've been there for a long time, so none of these are new. Going over to Alaska, you can't see Alaska, but there aren't any new ones there either. Arizona, there's been quite a bit of activity here. This is one of the more popular states for people to choose. Really interesting line right here. This is the I-17 corridor, Flagstaff, Williams. This is Sedona, Prescott, Phoenix area, and Tucson. And one of the more recent ones here is Lake Havasu City, trying to relive your high school or college spring break days. So Arizona, one of the more popular states. You can see just kind of in general, the West is a little more populated, and then the East Coast, so not a lot of love for here. Going into Arkansas, not a lot. All 4 of them are right there. Real nice part of the state. That's going to be the understandable why that's where the pins are. Let me back this up a little bit. All right, California is the state that has the most. There are 90 pins here, or 88 pins here. Very interesting about California is that this is Los Angeles, 18 million people in the LA metro area, only 11 pins. San Francisco Bay Area has 7 million or so. There's like 22 pins there. San Diego has about 22. So this is the big part of the population for the state, but not a lot of people choosing to go there. So this is a very small sample size. It's just going to be interesting to see just viewers of a channel like this, are more likely to want to travel or move somewhere else. So a lot of California is moving from the state, and a lot of them are coming from Southern California. Many LA people when they move, are tending to move to other states. A lot of Bay Area folks, if they get priced out, tend to move to other parts of California. So that's pretty interesting. Going over to Colorado, you can see there's not much space in Colorado. You guys really like it. This is Denver, Boulder, and just like on the streets, Metro Denver fades into Metro Boulder, Fort Collins. These are a bunch of ski resort towns. Aspen, Breckenridge, Telluride's real popular. So very popular state in terms of where people want to live. It's a great state. I can totally understand why people would want to see that. Yeah, I know I'm streaming my screen to my camera. I have it set up a little strange. I know it's not the best, but I like to do things as unprofessional as possible. That's kind of my thing. So I'm going over here. Connecticut, not a whole lot, just 3 here. And none of these are new. These have been here for a while. This one's rural Connecticut. This one's near Mystic. And actually, all 3 of these are kind of smaller towns. Delaware only has 2, 1 near Philly, 1 on the beach. Florida has quite a few. And this is one of the more popular states. And as you can probably guess, most of them are going to be along the coast. I mean, if you want to be in Florida, you probably want to be on the coast, right? A couple of the Keys, Miami. The Tampa Bay area is per capita more popular than the Miami area, which I think is pretty cool because I like the Tampa Bay area a lot. Yeah, not much love here. This is what they call the Redneck Riviera. Not a lot of stuff going on here. A couple of these are, I'm not sure what city that is. It's not Mexico Beach, because Mexico Beach I don't think is really there anymore. Alright, so coming down here to Hawaii, quite a few here. You can probably figure a lot of people would like to live in Hawaii. It's obviously going to be very expensive, but Oahu and Maui are the two islands that have the most interest for people. I'm going to put this. Is it not good sounds? Let me check the mic real quick. Does that sound any better? I have a different setup than normal when I do live stream, so the mic and camera, everything's in a different position than normal. So hopefully, yeah, I can't do a stream without something weird falling over or something happening. All right, so moving on to Georgia. Georgia is surprisingly not popular. I thought Georgia would be a little more popular. Got a couple in Atlanta, a couple in Savannah, but really not much interest there. I'm kind of surprised. And somehow I did Georgia after Hawaii. That's how well I know the states. Idaho here. Whenever you see a white pin, that just means somebody picked to just generally be in that state. So these are Boise. I'm not sure what that is. This is Coeur d'Alene, Lake Pend Oreille. This is a really popular spot for a lot of Hollywood millionaires and stuff moving up here, the Idaho Panhandle and near the Canadian border up here. All right, going over to Illinois. Several in Chicago. People, do enjoy. Actually, there's supposed to be one more there. I forgot to put this. Let me grab a pen. There was another one from today for Chicago. But yeah, despite all the negative press that Chicago tends to get, it's still a great place, and I can see why people would be interested in living there. Because I just got back from there, not just back, but I was there over the summer and had a really good time. I can totally see why it's less expensive than most other big cities. Indiana, these are Indianapolis. This is Bloomington, and these are all pretty old. Nothing has been added to Indiana for quite a while. Iowa, the state I always forget. There aren't many here. This is Ames, the college town for Iowa State. Des Moines, that's probably Cedar Rapids or Iowa City. No, that's Iowa City, and that's Dubuque. So I talked about this recently in a video. This kind of driftless area here. It's real nice. So Dubuque's a really nice town. Kansas, I guess, got a new one, or a relatively recent one for Kansas. This was one of the last states to get any pins. Now there are 4. These are KC suburbs. That's Abilene, and this one's very specific. I'm not going to say where this is. I think this guy just gave me his address basically, so I'm not going to say where that one is. But it's a pretty neat area though. That's probably the prettiest part of Kansas. Kentucky, Lexington, Louisville, and I guess that's Paducah maybe. So not a lot in Kentucky, and just in general the Southeast, a little underrepresented except for Tennessee and North Carolina. All right, so Louisiana, got one for New Orleans, one for across the lake for New Orleans, and this one it's a small town. So not a lot of love for Louisiana. I was curious to see how many there would be for New Orleans. It's obviously quite a unique place, not for everybody, but Coming over here to Maine, a lot of popularity for Portland, Bar Harbor. This is I don't know what this is actually, but these are mostly kind of smaller towns up here. So, but you can see that's New England in general is just kind of a very popular spot. Maryland, several on the DC side or the suburbs of DC. Baltimore, a couple of rural towns. This is a mountain town over here. Massachusetts, the entire time I've been doing this, has consistently been the one state that the largest percentage of the people from there want to stay there. So these are mostly people from Massachusetts that want to stay there. And there's also a lot of people that have moved to Massachusetts from somewhere else but want to stay there after they've moved there. So pretty interesting. I like Massachusetts. It's expensive, it's high tax, but I think it's kind of like Minnesota. People often say, well, you kind of get what you pay for with Massachusetts. So it might be Lewiston, although Lewiston is not where I would move to in Maine. But all right, so where was I? Massachusetts, Michigan. All right, so these are Detroit suburbs. A couple of these are actually in Detroit. People are a little surprised at that, but I think Detroit is, I think this might be a good time to be buying a place in Detroit, just because it's one of the last untouched, ungentrified, largely cities. Grand Rapids and Michigan, very interesting, is that people that live there really prefer the Lake Michigan side to the Lake Huron side. In the summer, you get more. This is better for, I guess, lake activity, going to the beach. Not quite as exciting over here, but UP is very popular. This is Marquette, one of the more popular spots. This is Houghton, I'm not sure how to pronounce that one. Minnesota, also very popular. A lot in Duluth. There's more in Duluth than the Twin Cities, so pretty surprising there. And a lot of these are up in the North Woods, really pretty areas here. But yeah, Minnesota is after Massachusetts is the one where the next highest percentage of the people that want to stay there are from there. So people that from there tend to like it. Mississippi, two, they're both down here on the coast, Gulfport and Ocean Springs. No other pins for all of Mississippi. So Missouri, got some lakes here, Osage Lake, Columbia, St. Louis suburbs, and this is Poplar Bluff, perhaps. No, this is a smaller town. I can't remember what it was. It's a pretty small town. Montana, you can see, and this is a good example of kind of how this goes. You can look at the states that have, beautiful spots and not so beautiful spots, and the pins are all like here. So Montana, this is gorgeous. This is still a pretty subtle beauty over here, but not exactly desirable. Bozeman is growing quite a bit. It's really expensive. This is Glacier National Park. A lot of pins in Flathead, Whitefish, Pole Bridge, a couple of towns up there. Nebraska, these are Omaha, North Platte. No, this is North Platte. I'm not sure what that is. This is one of the best ones. This is my award for silliest one. This is Alliance, Nebraska. This is where you have the car henge, the cars stacked up like Stonehenge. So not only did this pin want to be in Alliance, he wanted it strictly at Carhenge. So this guy's squatting at Carhenge right there. Vegas here, Great Basin National Park area, really, really pretty secluded area. If you like to be on your own, but in a town that's still got some stuff there. Ely here is a nice little town that's, you're way off by yourself. Lake Tahoe, Reno area. Whoops. This is where the Great Basin National Park one is, Vegas, and this is the Reno Lake Tahoe area. Probably the most popular spot for the state. New Hampshire, surprisingly enough, New Hampshire doesn't have a whole lot. I always thought of New Hampshire as being maybe the most desirable state in New England, but not a lot of responses for New Hampshire. But again, this sample size is not exactly the most scientifically accurate thing you're going to get. New Jersey, not many. Cape May, small town in the northwest part of the state, and that's about it. A couple of these, one is West New York, and one is Jersey City, but the rest are, that's it for New Jersey. So New Mexico, very popular. Santa Fe, Albuquerque, Las Cruces has been picking up a few. All three of these are fairly recent. These are more smaller mountain towns. That's Taos, I believe. That's Silver City. So I love Silver City. This is a pretty cool, kind of like Ely, just kind of by itself doing its own thing, not really near anything else. And then you come to New York, you can see the Hudson Valley right here. A lot of people here, Albany, Saratoga Springs, this is the New York City metro area. A lot of them are for Manhattan, a couple of them are for Long Island. Got Buffalo. This is the Finger Lakes area, very pretty rural part of the state. I think that's where they grow a lot of the apples and have dairies and stuff, so really nice. North Carolina, the most popular state in the South, and most of these pins are here in the mountains, so people love this area. This is a beautiful area, and it's not growing as much as you might think because it's not as much. There is some NIMBYism here, so I guess people there want to keep it a little bit quieter, but NIMBYism doesn't always work. Asheville is where the most growth is, though. Raleigh, Charlotte, a couple in the Outer Banks, and Wilmington. So I think Wilmington is very underrated. It's a nice coastal town. North Dakota, Bismarck, and this is Minot. I'm not sure what town that's going to be, but small town, Ohio, got Cincinnati, Dayton, Columbus. These are Cleveland. That's probably, it's not Put-in-Bay, but it's something right there near Sandusky area. That's Akron. And that is, I don't know what that one is. This is a small town. So Ohio, not a lot per capita, but most of these have been more recent. So Ohio got off to a really slow start. Oklahoma, this sad guy has been sitting here by himself. This was one of the very first pins. Like when I first started this thing, this was one of the first 10, and it's still sitting there by himself in Norman, Oklahoma. Oregon is very popular. Portland is one of the most popular cities. The coast is very popular. This is Bend. If you live in Bend or near, it's growing like crazy. Coastal areas. This is near Ashland. So a lot of interest for Oregon. Another one of the best pins on here, one of my favorite ones, is this one's for the Alvord Desert. That's some of the most desolate country you're going to see in the West. He's got, just put me out there in the middle of nowhere. So, all right. All right, so I'm over here, Pennsylvania. You got Pittsburgh. I'm not sure, that's Sharon? No, Clarion, something like that. I don't know. This is going to be kind of in the mountainous areas a little bit. This one was kind of generic South Central PA. Just wanted to be kind of between Harrisburg, York, and Lancaster, that kind of area there. It's real nice. Philadelphia, Stroudsburg. Surprisingly, 2 for Pittsburgh. I like Pittsburgh. Rhode Island only has 2. One is for Block Island, which is a really cool protected island off the coast. And this one's for Providence suburbs. South Carolina, kind of disappointed. There aren't that many here. 2 for Charleston, Myrtle Beach. This is Greenville, and that's it. There's I guess I'm biased from living there. Or maybe I thought that it was a more desirable state nationwide, or my wife was from there, so maybe I just was biased. But not a lot of love for it here. South Dakota, 2 in the Black Hills areas, 2 in Sioux Falls. Sioux Falls is pretty nice. It's been growing a lot lately. If you like the smell of bacon fat, it smells like bacon fat there. All right. Tennessee, this is Nashville and the suburbs. I'm here in Chattanooga. There's 3 pins here. These are kind of mountain towns here. Knoxville, Memphis. This is middle of nowhere here. So Nashville is the big spot that people like in Tennessee, and Chattanooga as well. But Chattanooga is not growing anywhere near as much as people thought it was going to be over the past few years. A little surprising, but very surprising is Texas. Not only are there not that many, all of these are pretty old. I haven't put one up in Texas in months, so I'm not sure why that's the case. These are San Antonio, Austin, Hill Country, Fredericksburg. This is a real nice area here. 2 in Marathon. These were 2 of the earliest ones. Dallas, Fort Worth. One is Dallas, one is Fort Worth. One is one of the suburbs in the middle, maybe Arlington, and this is maybe Denton. Waco and Tyler, couple in Corpus Christi, Weslaco and South Padre Island, so Weslaco, I'm not sure, and one for El Paso. So not really very many. And again, none of them have been in the past 6 months or so, which is kind of interesting. Utah here, these are Salt Lake. This is, areas just outside the metro area. This is probably around, probably off of I-70. I'm not sure exactly where this is. This is where all the national parks are. So I guess can't really live there, I guess. I mean, if you're this guy, you can live anywhere you want. But this is Zion area, Bryce Canyon, St. George. All right, so Vermont, Burlington, and some of the smaller mountain towns here. So Vermont is, relatively popular for its size. Virginia is a state that got off to a really slow start, but over the past few months has really gotten a lot of pins. So there's been a lot more interest in Virginia. DC suburbs. This is the I-81 spine. Really nice area. I hate driving that, but it's a nice area. Roanoke. This is probably like Williamsburg area. And these are Richmond metro. So there weren't many in Virginia up until just a handful of months ago. And so probably just coincidence, but just interesting nonetheless. Going over to Washington, it's blurry, but Seattle is the most popular metro area in the country for all of these. I think there's like 23 pins in Seattle metro. And if you live there, you're probably thinking, yeah, that sounds about right. It's crowded. And these are mostly small towns just on the Olympic Peninsula, beautiful area. So I can totally see why that. This is really middle of nowhere too. I think it's called Twisp. I'm not sure exactly, but that's a pretty cool spot. West Virginia didn't have any for the longest time. All three of these are relatively recent. This is near New River Gorge National Park, Buckhannon, and Morgantown, which is the college town, maybe a half an hour from Pittsburgh or so. Wisconsin, these are Madison. This is Milwaukee. Another one of the better ones here is a guy that straight up said, put me in the National Wildlife Refuge. So there you go, man. You're in the National Wildlife Refuge. And there's one out here on Door County, Bailey's Harbor, and one up here, Ashland? I'm not sure what that is, but surprisingly none here. I like this part of the state, but nothing. And let me tell you about a place that's closed. It's called Jackson, Wyoming. There's like 12 pins here. The town's 10,000 people. It's outside of Grand Teton National Park, so it's popular. It's very expensive. It's it's going to cost you as much to live there. Just going to, these Colorado towns, but a lot of folks moving there. So I've been doing this for 2 years, but the trends are kind of the same. So it's pretty interesting. But the general idea is people want west, beautiful scenery, east, beautiful scenery, and not much love for the subtle beauty of the Great Plains and the Midwest. But I think, again, like I said at the beginning, a lot of folks, that are more interested in a channel like this might be more interested in moving around and seeing different things. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a regular video coming up in a couple of weeks where I'm going to analyze the actual spreadsheet. There's like a lot of spreadsheet data with this, so I'm going to analyze all that in a regular type video. So, Quiz Chris, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Are you going to make me put a pin in Orlando? I think actually Orlando does have one. You're killing me, man. All right, I will. All right, so I'm going to go back a little bit and catch up to some questions. All right, so yeah, nothing in Moab. All right, so I'm going to put this disgusting pin in Orlando, Florida. Close my eyes. But the comment at least said you can stick it to them, so there you go. In case you're wondering, I actually am pretty familiar with Orlando. I've ripped on it a lot on the channel, but I have spent quite a bit of time there. My wife actually lived there for a few years, so before we were married, so that's kind of whatever. All right, so we do have two in Rhode Island, but it's One Block Island, one for Providence. I do like San Angelo, Texas. I hadn't been there before until maybe a couple of years ago. I was like, oh, that's pretty nice. I wasn't expecting much out of it, honestly, but it was pretty cool. Oh, sorry, Boss King. Morgantown's more than a half an hour from Pittsburgh. Yeah, I knew it wasn't that close. Leza, thank you very much. I very much appreciate that. Meet and greet events. Nothing planned. I don't often know where I'm going to be. A lot of my road trips are kind of spur of the moment. I maybe don't know maybe a day in advance where I'm going to be. Or like when I was in Chicago, I went there and I was only going to be there for 3 days. And I was like, well, I still have more to see. So I spent an extra day there. So one thing I do plan on doing this summer, or maybe spring, when it gets a little bit warmer, is to do something on the street in Chattanooga where I'm filming live, like a live stream, but I'll be out asking geography questions. So if you're older like me, you remember Jay Leno doing the street stuff where you ask people on the street questions, and there was always dumb answers. So I'm gonna do something like that. So that probably be the closest thing to like a meet and greet. Ooh, okay, I got a lot of super chats here. I thank you guys very much. Brian, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to keep going as long as 3 people watch. As long as more than my 2 parents are watching, I'll keep going. Josh, thank you very much. Actually, I don't know SpongeBob. I was already pretty old by the time that came out, and I don't have kids. We don't have. I mean, yeah, we're never around kids, so I don't know. But Bikini Bottom, I think it's. Yeah, I'm going to go with Bimini. Sounds kind of like that. Hey, Boss King. He's a good map maker. How you doing? I don't know about the March Madness. It was actually really complicated. It was very involved. So I was thinking about doing something similar, but probably not the same exact type thing, but something quite similar. RM Biss, thank you very much. Actually, I don't know where I got this shirt. My parents got it for me as a gift years ago, probably 5 years ago. I have no idea. It's probably online, I'm sure, somewhere, but I don't know where. Yes, Ryan. Yeah, scenic areas. I think with all else being equal, people would rather look out the window and see an ocean or a mountain or something pretty. I mean, again, with all else being equal. Yosef, thank you very much. Montreal, yeah, I'll put a pin for Montreal. I got no problem with that. Jerry, wow, thank you very much. I very, very much appreciate that. That means a lot to me. Really, it does. But yeah, let me grab a pin for. Je place le pin. Oh, not yellow. I already got yellow in there. J'aime beaucoup Montreal. J'aime beaucoup la vie quand nous sommes visitons en 2014. I speak terrible French, by the way. I'm upping my French right now because of a big trip we have coming up. I want to announce it on the channel, but we have a really big trip coming up, and I'm trying to beef up my French again. Oh, okay, I got to really catch up with you guys here. Jerry, again, thank you very much. Jake. Yeah, Jake, thank you. Thank you very much. I will put you in Yosemite Valley. You can't live there. You can squat there, though. Anita, my next road trip, we have a really big trip coming up. And actually, I'll just go ahead and say it now. We're going to be going to Morocco in March. So it's mostly bilingual, Arabic and French. So I'm trying to. I don't speak any Arabic. Je ne parle pas arabique du tout, mais je ne parle pas français très bien. But Yale. I'm familiar with World According to Briggs and Nick Johnson. I watched Nick Johnson's video on the San Joaquin Valley, which is where I'm from. He can be kind of mean sometimes. But he was pretty fair with that video. It's a very poor area, and he wasn't completely just negative trashing it. But Briggs, I haven't watched his channel in a while. But I do know who they are. Felix, statehood. The DC one is tricky. I'm all support of Puerto Rico being a state. I think it's pretty much ridiculous if it's not. Let me catch up to some of these. You guys are just way too kind. Matt, thank you. Grand Junction. I like Grand Junction. It's got kind of a shabby chic, kind of a divey hipster town. I like it. All right, so. Yeah, Robert, when I was a little kid, I just went straight to maps. I mean, when we moved to where I'm from, I was probably 4 or 5 years old, and one of the first things I did was get the road map of the city and just get it all out. The little kid laying on the floor memorizing the streets of the town, and I'd be in the back seat of my parents' car, like giving directions: turn right, go a mile, turn left. And this little kid in the back seat, like Google Maps before it was Google Maps. Wyrock. Growing up a Mystic was like Dawson's Creek meets Ferris Bueller. Is that good or bad? Foy. One place I never want to go back to. I don't really think there's anywhere I hate so much. Like even like Orlando, I would go back to see what has changed. Or I think the places I wouldn't go back to are places that I've felt I've scoured and there's not much left to see. So that would be more likely the places I wouldn't want to return to. There was an island in the Caribbean, Nevis. I mean, we loved it. We had a great time there, but it's a small island. We spent a week there, and I was able to basically walk around the entire island. I felt like there's nothing left to see there. So that's the kind of place I would probably not want to return to. Gatlinburg, I'm not a big fan of Gatlinburg, actually. I think it's kind of tacky for a national park entrance town. Because you go to any of the national parks, the town outside of it, like Oakhurst, California, or Estes Park, Colorado, these up here, Whitefish, all the national park towns, they're always nice. Williams, Arizona. But then Gatlinburg is just, I don't know, it's not so much as the town is bad, it's just that it's the gateway to the national park, which I think is kind of lame, in my opinion. Hello, New Orleans. I've never been to Bellingham, Washington, and if you've watched a lot of my videos, you probably noticed that I've rarely talked about Washington. Of all the states I've been to, I've been to the 48 contiguous. That's the one I know the least about. I've spent very little time there, so I've never been to Bellingham. I've only been to Seattle, and that's it. Nowhere else in Washington. And it was 20 years ago, and it's obviously much, much larger now. John Smith, that game where I named cities, I was there for hours doing that. It's crazy. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get caught up here. I want to make sure that I'm not too far behind. All right. All right. Eat the After. Thank you very much. Great name. Thank you. I always like to hear from people that live in places about what your opinion is on the video. I do find it interesting because people from New Jersey are often considered rude, and I made some mispronunciations on there. I didn't even know about it until several days later. But when I did the video for Wisconsin, man, the friendly Midwest, I made some mispronunciations here. They jumped on me like crazy. So, but yeah. All right. 7 cities named Salem will be in the next eclipse in perfect row. Is that true? If it is, that's rather crazy, but Danielle, yes, I do have international pins for the pin map as well. But in terms of a separate live stream for it, I'm going to cover the international stuff in the regular video I'm going to have coming up, going over the spreadsheet data for that. And your mom grew up in Fresno? Well, that's cool. Fresno gets a lot of hate. I think the main reason why Fresno gets a lot of hate is just when you drive through it, you go through all of the worst possible parts. It goes through the industrial areas, the agricultural packaging areas, the red light district, so you only ever see the awful driving through it. Joshua, hello, Greenville. Oh, I thought it said Greenville, SC. Greenville, North Carolina, whatever. Actually, Greenville's pretty cool, college town. I like purple as a color, so anywhere you can go where purple is like a color scheme is very nice. Let us be your Gettysburg Address for Gatlinburg. Yeah, I don't think it's an awful place, but just as a national park gateway town, I think it's not the greatest. Very late Barcelona. Buenos Dias already for Barcelona. I know this is really late for European viewers. It's tough because I'm on the East Coast, and I want to make it so it's not too early for people in the West, and that makes it really late for people in Western Europe. TD, yeah, I love Guadalupe Mountains National Park. It's right here, right on the New Mexico border. It's basically adjacent to Carlsbad Caverns. So Carlsbad Caverns is here, and Guadalupe Mountains there. It's like 8,200 feet, the highest point in Texas, and it's actually a relatively easy hike. It's not really, it's not super strenuous. So if you're one of the ones who likes to get all the high peaks, this one's not too bad. My thoughts on trains. I think trains are great. I think we're going to need to have better movement of people. But I'm not always, but usually in more support of intra-metro light rail being beefed up before inter-metro high-speed rail. So, for example, if you have high-speed rail from Denver to Kansas City, I mean, if you get to Kansas City, what are you going to do? You have to Uber Lyft somewhere. So, I would rather see this beefed up in here first, so that when you go from here to here, you can just get on a small train to get to wherever. So, but I do think we'll eventually get to the point. But going back to Morocco, it's a poor country, but they have a state-of-the-art, brand new high-speed rail. So the fact that they do have 200-mile-an-hour rail is why we're going to be able to visit Marrakesh, Rabat, and Tangier. But without that high-speed rail, we'd probably only be able to do 2 and fly between them. But we can we could even go to Casablanca. We could do a lot of Morocco just with high-speed rail. So I think we'll eventually get there, but it's taking some time. The most important corridors, like the big population centers here, they're working on that. They're working on Texas, I think, and I mean, this is so congested up here. It's almost like high-speed rail would. You have to stop so much; it wouldn't really be high speed. But Devin, thank you very much. Shout out from Idaho. A lot of folks moving to Idaho. I read somewhere that Idaho is right now the most overpriced. Like the houses are the most overvalued right now. I think because a lot of these people, not just the regular LA folks, a lot of the movie star LA folks are moving up here and driving up prices here, Bozeman. So this is just becoming this playground for the massively rich. Yeah, I would love to go to Barcelona. The reason why we're going to Morocco is actually we're going to be going to Frankfurt, Germany. My wife has family there, so we're going to be visiting some of her family. And then we're like, well, if we're going to be in Frankfurt, Frankfurt is like the hub airport of the world. You can get anywhere from Frankfurt. So we wanted to go somewhere sort of between Frankfurt and here. And Morocco is not exactly between, but it's not going way out of the way. So, but if we did this again, I would definitely want to go through Spain because I really, really want to see Spain. My ancestors are Basque, and so I'd really love to see Bilbao and San Sebastian in northern Spain. James, thank you very much. Sierra Vista, Arizona. It's down here. Military town. Is it Fort Huachuca, something like that? I recently talked about Bisbee and Chiricahua National Monument here. Nice area. Yeah, I like Southeast Arizona. Yeah, Boss King, I do have another oddities videos, but the thing about those, it's hard to get good material for them because I mean I've done 4 of them, and I do have stuff for the next one coming up, but I'm really having to do some serious mining of info to get stuff because there are some other channels that do similar videos, and I've noticed that I've said something and they've kind of done a similar thing. So I want to make sure the ones I'm talking about are just kind of obscure, but really still really cool ones. But it should be coming up once I have enough material for a full length of the video. Yeah, Taylor, that might very well be the case. It might have been undervalued before because Idaho is very nice. I mean, the scenery there, you can argue it's the prettiest state. It's just the way the mountains are just it's a little bit steeper. They have the Sawtooth Mountains here that are, they're pointy like that, and get the craters of the moon area. I mean, it's a gorgeous state. So I can see maybe it's undervalued before, yeah. El Greco, thank you very much. Plug your ears, El Greco. I didn't eat pizza when I was in New York, except for a street slice. Just the cheap street slices when it's 3 in the morning and there's nothing else, just right there across the street. But when I was in New York, September, I definitely ate good Italian food, but just not pizza. I ate Ethiopian food in East Harlem. I ate at Eileen's Cheesecake. I had a lunch there. It's in Little Italy area. So I really like New York. I could never live there, but I just think it's great to hang out there and visit. In terms of famous places, I'm not sure if any of the places I went to were famous. I would never run with the bulls. I think that's crazy. That was probably a pretty cool thing like 50 years ago before it became super touristy and overdone, and it was probably a legit cool thing, but Amtrak Keystone goes 130. That's pretty good. That's pretty fast for Amtrak. Tamara, I do like Rick Steves. He's kind of like me. He's boring, but he's nerdy. I like that. He was also, well, anyway. Shouting out a big old howdy y'all from Cowtown. Now here's the thing. Cowtown is Fort Worth, Kansas City, or Sacramento. So which one are you talking about? Daniel, I'm not really a huge football fan, but my family are all 49ers fans, so I'm going to probably get texts all during the game of complaining or happy, whatever. Hialeah Heritage. I don't know what that is, actually. I don't know what that means, to be honest with you. Coleslaw. Cool cover. Thank you very much. She's in the NEK of Vermont, Northeast something. You're in Minnesota in school. Out of PID to Winnipeg. Really? There's nothing in Manitoba right now. You'll be the first Manitoba. I've never been there, so I don't know much about it. I do know that on Canadian standards, it's like the violent, dangerous city, but I mean, it's still safer than anywhere else in the U.S., but I do think that's... The only other thing I know about Winnipeg is their hockey team's always bad. And one of the main streets downtown is called Portage Street, and canoeing is a big thing in Canada, so that's about all I know. And actually, I don't know exactly where it is. It's here-ish, but I'm going to have to wait until I can look at the map to know exactly where it goes, but it's ish right there. Quincy, Illinois. Howdy, Pack Raiders. Nice little town there. It's right about here-ish. There's right on the river. I'm trying to remember something about it. Yeah, Idaho is a made-up word. That's one thing I like about the name of the state. It's just some guy made it up. He tried to fool people into thinking it was an indigenous word. He just made it up. And actually, he tried to get Colorado to go with that name first. He's like, but they didn't go for it. And but they knew it was a fake name. It wasn't like they were fooled. They just like, that's cool. We like it. Yeah, Chris, I know the $1 slice is the joke in New York. Don't eat the $1 slice. But man, when you're coming out of Greenwich Village, it's late, and there's a guy right there with a $1 slice. It's hard to pass that up. Scott Delmarva, right here. I like this area. I'd never driven the bridge tunnel here until just a few months. When I drove up to New York, I drove through here. That was really cool. Kind of freaky too. From an engineering and financial standpoint, does that make more sense to have a tunnel than, I don't know. It seems like it'd be way more expensive, but I don't know. But I do like the area. This part here is actually part of Virginia, and it's just kind of a weird, real small towns, but you're in Virginia. Then you get the eastern shore of Maryland, which is more, you have a college town there, you have Ocean City's kind of a, beach party town. All right, Northeast Kingdom, okay, that's right. I knew. Oh yeah, Calgary's another cow town, that's right. Columbus is too? No, okay, I guess there's a bunch of cow towns then. All right. Cope Dipper, thank you very much. Yeah, Wichita, Kansas City. Yeah, I mean, I remember the first time I saw the cliche, Kansas sunflower field was at the Wichita Nature Center or something like that, or the Great Plains Nature Center here. That was just a giant field of sunflowers. It was really cool. It was right when they were at peak too. New Haven pizza better than New York. I did hear a lot of people talking about New Haven pizza. Michael, thank you very much. Ever seen a map of NCAA schools, one in Great Plains? Not sure what that means. Eclectic Life, thank you. Yeah, Jill, I don't know. The shirt is a mystery. I have no idea where it came from. Yeah, Papa, you knew what I was gonna say. Hussey's Huddle. Oh, Hamilton. We got Canada all over the place now. We got Montreal, Winnipeg, Hamilton, west end of Lake Erie. I really should know that. I'll have to wait to put that one up for sure. I think it's right about here. Um, but really, this whole area is kind of like one metro, really. It just kind of it's nonstop development, essentially from Toronto, Hamilton, Burlington, and then Niagara Falls and Buffalo. So, all right, so we got the Great White North is representing. Mark, the Golden Isles in Georgia. I'm not sure exactly which ones are the Golden Isles, but I'm assuming you mean here where it's St. Simon's and what's the other one? What's the Tybee? So I don't know if that's what you mean by Golden Isles. I've never heard that term, but I do love that part of the state. And I'm really surprised. Again, I mentioned about Savannah. There's only a couple there. I thought there'd be, maybe Brunswick, Georgia, or these places are a little more hidden. I don't know. Oh, okay, Michael, I got it. Got it. Okay, so between San Antonio and Denver. Okay, I get it. So yeah, Texas Tech is the only major research university in this whole area. I mean, actually, I think there's what San Angelo State, and surprisingly enough, one of the best geography departments in the country is Texas State University in San Marcos. And when I went to graduate school at South Carolina, this was like the top geography department, and San Marcos recruited heavy from us. They were always trying to get us to go to Texas State for PhD for people that were getting their masters. Hello, Allison, Pittsburgh, Vancouver Island, BC. And for the Americans out there, Vancouver Island is not where Vancouver is. So this big island is Vancouver Island. This is where Victoria, the capital of the province, is, but Vancouver itself is over here. Winterpeg. Yeah, home of the Guess Who. They're probably the first huge Canadian band to make it big in the U.S. I can't think of anybody that was huge before that. That was 1968. James, yes, best college towns is something. I have stuff on that coming up, talking about different types of college towns and just from small ones like Stillwater or Auburn or Clemson to much larger ones that are within a metro area kind of thing. So, Anthony, thank you. I appreciate the super chat. Sundance, Wyoming. I don't think I have. I don't know where it is actually. So I would have to say I may have driven through it, but I'm not familiar enough with it to answer anything specific. Sorry. Okay, coleslaw. I knew the highlight was a sport. I didn't realize. I had no idea it was of Basque origin. I guess that makes sense with the word. Oh, Nauvoo. Yeah. Is Quincy and Nauvoo are really close, aren't they? Yeah. So yeah, I don't know exactly where things are. TD, the Morocco of Minnesota. Went a full 1 degree colder than the rest of the state. Really? I'll put a I'll put a pin there. I don't know exactly where Winona is. It's right about there. I'm gonna have to come back to some of these. So let me write these down. Got Yosemite, Winnipeg, Hamilton, Quincy. Oh no, Quincy wasn't one of them. What was the other one? All right. Yeah, so I'll be able to get those up. Once I have to look at the map to get exactly the latitude. Some of these I can just put them up there without even looking at it. The people train don't run out of Wichita. Lesson you're a hog or a cattle. The people train runs out of Stubbville. That's exactly what I was going to say. I agree. I've never been to Eastern Europe. Hey Robert, I like Jack in the Box tacos anytime. You can just squeeze the grease out of them. They used to have one random Jack in the Box in Nashville, and they closed it down. But it's a Western chain. But V Horizon, Lincoln is it's growing. I wasn't aware. I mean, everywhere is getting more expensive. I wasn't aware that it was, growing up or getting more expensive by such a high amount. Yeah, Orangeville, Ontario. Actually, thinking about the map, I didn't even go over Canada talking about the map because Orangeville reminds me. I wanted to ask Canadians or Ontarians, is Orangeville a cool town? Because there's two pins here. Is that just kind of a coincidence, or is it a place that's known as kind of a neat town? Because these are Toronto. These are kind of smaller towns here, and these are Montreal. This is a smaller town in Quebec. And then you got some of these mountainous towns here, and then Banff, and some of this wanted to be North Canada or North Alberta. Kevin, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I say nerdy like it's not a negative thing. I think it's good. The Golden Horseshoe of Canada. Okay, that's a cool name. That's a good name for a metro area. You got Metroplex. You got the different types of names like that. So yeah, I like that Golden Horseshoe. Sarnia, Ontario. Got a lot of Canadians here. That's right here. So when I go to visit my friends in Detroit metro area, when we go to Canada, we go up to Sarnia or Port Huron, Michigan, Sarnia, Ontario, as opposed to going across Detroit into Windsor. It's just a lot easier to go that way. So a little more rural. Of course, this is not exactly this is not the prettiest drive in Canada right here. IA from Chicago. And if you're in Chicago, you have a lot of options for things within one day. I recently talked about this area here. There's a town called Galena. I'm not sure how long it will take you to get there from Chicago. Back this up. This thing is like too close on my face. Yeah, real nice area here. Dubuque and this, La Crosse, Wisconsin. Also, I can't think of the name of the park here. Is it Starved Rock or something like that? It's a really nice state park there. And also really nice stuff down here. The Shawnee National Forest, Crab Orchard. So, we got the Dunes National Park, and the Lake Michigan side of Michigan is just very pretty and I mean, really, where you're at, you can go anywhere north and it's going to be pretty nice. Boss King, yeah, one thing about that video, people took it the wrong way. The video was about, if you have 2 weeks on a road trip, this is a once in a lifetime kind of thing you're doing, you can't see it all. So it was more about, if you can't see it all, hit the highlights. And so people didn't like that I said their state might have been boring, but it's not like I hate the state. It's just if you're recommending a road trip for somebody, a once in a lifetime thing for 2 weeks, I can't say go to Dodge City. I can't. I mean, you really got to hit the highlights, and most people aren't going to have a million road trips to do or be able to see everything. So, but in terms of most interesting states, I think that'd be a little bit more difficult to do actually, because there's only a handful of states that I put in that video that are pretty much the only ones. But the most interesting would be, all of them basically. So I don't know. That would be a tough one. Jill got stuck in the tunnel. Ooh, that would not be fun. I could think of better things than that. No, Ricky Bobby, nothing in College Station. That's what, right about here, I think. No. WVU, yeah. Texas State it used to be called Southwest Texas State, and then they upped it to a major research university, because as Texas grew, it needed some of these more regional schools to become bigger ones, and for whatever reason, that became the one with the big geography department. Ethan, USC, I'm assuming you mean my USC, South Carolina, and I would imagine it's still good for meteorology and climatology. That's what I studied when I was there, because you major in geography where you pick a specialty, and mine was climatology, and it was excellent. But I don't know if the same professors were there or who's replaced. They were kind of young when I was there. If I doubt any of them are retired. The P's are upside down. My favorite spot in Wisconsin. I don't know if I have a single favorite spot. I was able to visit Door County when it was off season, and so it wasn't crowded at all. And so I've heard from people that are from there, like in the summertime, it's busy, it's backed up traffic, and everything's expensive. Hotels are booked. But I think it was like September, October. I was there. It was really nice. So. So I'd probably say that for right now, but if being there when it's busy might change my mind, kind of like when I was in Bar Harbor, it was off season, so it wasn't super crazy, but I can imagine it being awful when it's the high season. My favorite Dakota. That's a good question, because I really like the western halves of both states. Man, that's tough. So it'd be kind of, do I prefer Sioux Falls or Fargo? I'd probably take, that's tough. I think I would take Sioux Falls. So I'll go with South Dakota, because they also have Badlands. They have the Black Hills and Badlands, so I'll go with South Dakota. Rogers, Arkansas, right up here. The fastest growing part of the state. They call that the NWA for Northwest Arkansas. The state of Franklin. I haven't spoken about it. I'm not familiar with it. Allison, thank you. Yeah, I love Pittsburgh. It's probably my favorite city to just go and just walk around, and I just like how it's small, but it's a big city, and I think it's great. It's a great way to stay in shape by walking. Most towns I visit, I'll walk a little bit with take a bus or a train depending on the city. But Pittsburgh is one I just like to be on my feet the entire time. Yeah, Devil's Lakes. I got a comment the other day about Devil's Lake in North Dakota. some really cool info about it. Like it's growing, like it's getting bigger. It sounded very fascinating. So I wanted to do a little more research on that. All right, I'm getting way behind. All right, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to skip some of these. I can't get to all the questions because yeah, I'm getting behind. Pawpaw, my least favorite state. I don't think I really have a least favorite state. It'd be more like where I just couldn't live. I couldn't do Alaska or Hawaii. I couldn't live there. I couldn't live in Florida. It's just always hot. I don't like it really hot or really cold. So as far if everything had the same climate, I don't know. I mean, everywhere has. I could do tiers more like A tier, B tier. As a absolute last. I don't want to be too mean. Thank you, Donald. Great. Majoring in geography. Really cool. Not sure what school you're at, but geography isn't a big department at that many schools. So the schools that tend to have it usually have a pretty good department, but there just aren't that many departments. Jelly Bean, Orangeville, no. I wasn't much sure about it. I just thought maybe it was just a coincidence 2 pins were there, but Tasha and Martin, I have been to New River Gorge Bridge. Some friends of mine go there, or they used to at least go there every year for the bridge day. They're cavers. They rappel off of it. I know they canceled it in 2020. I'm not sure if they had it in 21. And I'm not sure if they went to the last one, but yeah, I've been there, but I've not jumped off it. I'm not doing that. I'm afraid of heights. I can't do like the CN Tower in Toronto or the Space Needle. I can't do that kind of stuff. I do like Trailer Park Boys. I just find it fascinating that it takes place in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. So it's kind of outside of Halifax. So I was like, is Halifax like the cliche redneck part of Canada? I wouldn't think so, but I thought that was interesting that of all the places in Canada, that's where it would take place. I thought it'd be more like, here-ish, corner gas kind of stuff, but No pins in the Maritimes. Oh no, actually there is one in PEI. I'm not sure if you count that as I don't know if you call that a maritime, but none in New Brunswick and none in Newfoundland. But these are in Nova Scotia, so. Yeah, squirrels. San Luis Obispo County. This is my favorite county in the state. To me, when I think of California, this is my county because it's old school, it's classic. It's too far from LA, it's too far from the Bay Area. It's just kind of sitting there. The weather's always nice. The beaches are great. It's just the only people that go there to vacation are people from the valley here. So it's like they call it Bakersfield by the sea sometimes, but it's much less touched by the international tourists. Jake, thank you very much. I really do appreciate that. I could put you outside of Yosemite Valley, but you can't actually obviously live in a national park. But this guy's living in a national wildlife refuge, so yeah, I'll put you in I'll move you to Idaho instead. All right, since that one's more generic, I can put you in there right now. If you're from Idaho, that's where Bigfoot lives. If there is a Bigfoot, this is where it's going to be. There are places here that no human has ever been to. This is like crazy wilderness. Christopher, for a pin, I do it through Patreon, or you can do it through Super Chat here. I used to have PayPal, but PayPal did crazy things, and Venmo was just part of PayPal. And the thing where you have the super thanks on the screens there that's a moneymaker thing for YouTube. They take like 1/3 of it. So the only thing I do is Patreon for it, or for the Super Chats here. No oranges in Orangeville. I've been to Merced. I'm from Visalia, and Merced's about here. I think they're really pushing for Merced to be, because the high-speed rail is going to go right through Merced. I think they're planning on Merced being a place that Bay Area folks can commute to by train easily, and it's dirt cheap in Merced. So that might not be good for Merced, but I think that's kind of one of the plans, because one of the new University of California campuses is here. So there's been a little more interest in Merced, and it's growing. Sarnia, got it. Yep. I knew there was one. I knew there was one. Yes, the Rocky Point, Puerto Penasco is right here. Sometimes called Arizona Beach, because one thing that's interesting is all the folks don't know you can get Arizona to ocean, or not ocean, but Gulf of California in just a couple hours. This is a very popular spot for spring breakers. Real small town, so if you want to dip your toe into the shallowest end of the Mexico pool, this is it. That's about as Americano as you're going to get in Mexico. Verizon, Sioux Falls is cool. The actual falls itself, when I first saw it, I wasn't sure if it was natural. It looks almost like it's been constructed like Disneyland, but it's just a nice landscaped park around the falls. But I mentioned before, the thing I don't like about Sioux Falls is that the Smithfield bacon plant is in town, and it just smells like bacon fat, which might sound great, but it's it just wafts. I guess if you live there, you would get used to it. Maybe like if you live in a paper mill town, but okay, Galena is 3 hours from Chicago. Joe, there are a couple in Louisiana, but they're harder to see. New Orleans, some small town there. This is across the lake. Yes, Devin, my pin is here in Santa Fe. My wife's is outside of Asheville. Not in Asheville, but in the mountains outside of it. Sleeping Bear Dunes is really cool. They're definitely steeper than Indiana Dunes. I mean, Sleeping Bear Dunes here, when you slide or roll down, whatever you're doing, to get back up, you better be in good shape. This is a steep. Indiana Dunes isn't quite as demanding to get back up to the top. Papa, thank you very much for the super chat. A wish place to come to if you come to Washington this year. This is the part I really want to see here. I want to see North Cascades. I cannot believe that North Cascades National Park, just a couple of hours from Seattle, is one of the least visited parks in the country. It's very strange. But yeah, I'll get you a Port Orchard. I'm not sure where that is. I'm assuming it's on the coast, or on the Puget Sound. So I'm assuming around here on the west end. TD, I do not do any mountain biking, but Chattanooga is very well known for it. There's really nice spots in town. They're designed just for mountain bikers. But I don't do any myself. Casey, thank you very much. I appreciate the super chat. JLG, I like doing ranking of just any random thing. So I have a list of different types of. There's some of them are just completely ridiculous, but I like doing those sometimes. But I don't want to do those too often because those tend to be a little bit sillier. So I don't want to. I want to make sure those get spaced out pretty well. I don't want to have, more than 2 kind of silly videos within a few months. Sully, thank you very much for your kindness. Wow, it's very, very generous. London, okay. I don't but I don't know for sure. So I'm going to write that one down. What is that channel? The Dutch, the Not Just Bikes. I think he's from London, and he always called it fake London. But if he was really in the know, he would know where real fake London is, and it's near where I'm from. It's like the most gnarly place in the world. It's awful. If I was the kind of channel that did, poverty porn or whatever, I would definitely go to London, California. Yeah, driving across Ontario was not the best drive. Hello, Evan in Tulsa. I like Tulsa. Benjamin, thank you very much. Kansas City, it's been a while since I've been there. Probably a good 6 years. I think it's okay. It's not one of my absolute favorite big cities, but I certainly don't dislike it. To be fair, I do prefer St. Louis. But I don't think it's a bad place. It's got a good music scene. It's not so big to where it's, out of control big. And I know it has pretty high crime, but like most places, you can probably, figure out where to be to avoid it. But but with it being probably 6 years since I've been there, I don't know how much has changed. I don't think it's the city that's changed that much. I don't hear a lot about it in terms of big growth. Most of the growth, I think, is in Johnson County, Kansas, like Overland Park, Mission area, I think is where you're seeing more of the growth in the KC metro area. But as far as the city itself, it's okay. It's not one of my absolute favorites. Charles, the most underrated large city? Actually, I was right here. The Mistake by the Lake. This place is not bad at all by any stretch. I couldn't believe how not bad Cleveland was. So that's actually one of my next videos coming up will be on Cleveland. And I was very pleasantly surprised to the point where I'm not really sure where all the hate comes from. It doesn't seem not one iota worse than any of the other. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it was a lot worse back then, or maybe just the river catching on fire back in the 70s, just people just remember that kind of stuff. I don't know. Oh, yeah. Consequences. Yeah, this area here, this is not the prettiest part of New Mexico here, Gallup to Farmington. It's where you're going to see some poverty. It's going to be pretty bad, this part of the state. I mean, New Mexico is a poor state as it is, and this is the part that is the poorest part of the state. Yeah, I can imagine snow in Tulsa would be an issue. I don't think that's going to be the place that is going to be the most well prepared for snow. Probably the snow's there enough that the city has like one snowplow, kind of like Columbia, South Carolina has one snowplow. Charlie, yes, I will be in Maine. Maybe this summer. The summer is really open for travel and stuff. We're going to be in Toronto in April. I'm not sure if I'm going to be driving, and if I drive, where I'm going to go. and if I'll include a New England route, I'm not sure yet. So that kind of stuff is really just, I decide like a week before. Andrew, well, interesting you asked, because that trip to the Middle East didn't happen. So this time last year, I did a video like this. I was talking about how we're going to Frankfurt, Germany, and then to Oman and Dubai. And things happened, didn't work out. So we're doing that this year. We're going to Frankfurt, but then we're going to do Morocco instead, because we're going to go U.S. to Germany. We didn't want to go even farther out, so we're going U.S. to Germany to Morocco and then back. So it's not super far out of the way. And I'll be honest. I mean, Morocco is just. I'm just super jazzed about going there. Yeah, Bass. Yeah, this is definitely the bright spot for the state. Real nice area. Scenery here. This is where Fayetteville University of Arkansas is. Nice college town. This is Bentonville, where the Walmart headquarters is. And Walmart is, of course, just getting bigger and more job, and it's becoming, well, not becoming, it's already obviously a huge company, but it's just the actual corporate presence here is even bigger. And Andrew, for the other part of your question, yeah, Death Valley. I never hiked at that spot, but when I was in college, we'd go out here and take some measurements. We would do of sand dunes, erosion, and different wind measurements and stuff. It's pretty cool. We liked hanging out there. And again, Sally, thank you very much for your generosity. It's really cool. Even though you're from fake London. Terminal. I could, but I won't. If I tried to draw anything, it would look like nothing like it's supposed to be. Cool Phil. Recommendations for Mississippi and Arkansas. It really depends on what you're interested in. Like I just mentioned, Arkansas has a lot of growth up here, some nice towns. This is the kind of mountainous, green, really pretty hiking part of the state. Some nice kind of swampy areas here, marshy stuff. Mississippi, it doesn't have the same kind of like scenic beauty. So if you're trying to do some hiking or see some really nice state parks, it's not going to be quite as exciting here. But you have a lot of really cool towns, historic towns along the river. The beach areas are okay, but they're even though they border, they do offer very different things. Arkansas is much more outdoors oriented, so but if you're into that, then I would say Arkansas is definitely the better, and the Mississippi then again has the beaches. Allison, no, there's no proof. There's been rumors, but yeah, I don't think so. But actually, as you mentioned though, I mentioned in a lot of videos, companies are headquartered. So I'll say like AT&T is headquartered in Dallas, but in reality, I think just about every company is actually headquartered in Delaware. I think they all have a PO box there. That's their actual headquarters, but then their operational headquarters might be wherever. But I don't know what kind of laws they have in Delaware for that kind of sketchy setup, but that's where they're all, kind of like how all the credit cards are headquartered in South Dakota. What kind of sketchy rules do they have? All right. Yeah, Boss King. Cleveland, I was very impressed. I mean, obviously there's going to be plenty of problems there, but I was really surprised at the percentage of the town that is kind of the rundown poor area. I thought would be much larger, but it's actually a relatively small part of the city that's like that. Most of the city was at least kind of middle class, kind of blue collar, a lot of money there. Little Italy there is one of the, probably this, after only New York, the most vibrant Little Italy in the country. Benjamin Turlock. Right about here, Turlock's been growing quite a bit. That's another one of those places, kind of like Merced, that it's you can have Bay Area wages, live here, and if you're a tech worker here, maybe you only go into the office a couple of days a week. Maybe you work from home or something. That's a long commute, but if you're only going in 1 or 2 days a week, it's not bad. And then once that high-speed rail is built, then that's just you can sleep on your way home. So, I know the high-speed rail is controversial for the big cities, but man, that's going to be great for the valley. The valley's going to be the one that gets the most use out of it. Orange hexagon. Well, I'm not from Southern California. I'm from here, which I guess geographically is the southern half of the state, but usually Southern California is just the southern third of the state. So I moved from here to South Carolina, and that was in '99, and that was a weird time because at that time everybody and their mom was moving to California, and that's when things got really expensive, and that's when I moved to South Carolina, and I was like exotic. I mean, it was like, whoa, you're from California. It was so weird. But in terms of weather, it wasn't, the heat is, this gets really hot here. It gets not quite as hot, but much more humid. And the biggest problem for me climate-wise, and for me, it's not the humidity during the day. To me, the problem is at night, because you can be here in the desert, but you can be in Phoenix. It'll be 100 during the day, but at night it'll cool down to 65 or 70. There'll be times when my wife, we're visiting back home, and it'll be the middle of summer, 90 whatever degrees, but then she gets up really early and she'll go outside and she's chilly. So when it's drier temperatures, so people talk about dry heat. I think a bigger issue is cooling off at night. So in the South, it does not cool off at night. So you're going to run your air conditioning all night. And when I was first moved here, I couldn't sleep because I was too poor to afford to run the air all night. I just couldn't sleep. I had some major sleeping issues. But another thing is that thunderstorms, you don't get them out there, and they can be kind of scary. The ones here are not that bad. You get some crazy thunderstorms though. They can be a little hairy if you're like me. You like to be outside a lot, like to be walking, hiking, paddling. Thunderstorms can be a little scary, but yeah, Anita, I always put some stuff out when I travel. Like I have an Instagram. I never actually mentioned that I do, but I use that to kind of post photos of where I'm at. It's never pictures of me. It's just this is where I'm at. So when those days are, I'll put stuff on Instagram about it. The peas upside down. I can see what's happening here and here, the same thing that's happening here. It's just this got too big. And I think why you're seeing a lot of people, besides the expense, because people from here and here it's expensive too, but they tend to be moving to other parts of the state. But LA, I think it's not just expensive, it's so big. It's just so crowded. Like the LA metro area is like that wide. Think about that. It's about the size of Massachusetts. Imagine if the entire state of Massachusetts was nothing but completely built up urban. And actually, it would even include part of Connecticut and Rhode Island. So it's just too freaking big. And I'm worried that Houston and Dallas are doing the same thing. There's already almost 8 million people in the Metroplex. If you do like a 45-minute radius, not quite as many in Houston, but there's plenty of space. There's plenty of space to handle it. And Dallas has done a pretty good job with, it's not quite as unprepared for the growth as Austin, but I think it's still growing a little bit too fast. And for better or for worse, this might be good in the long term, but it's also gotten really expensive there. will there come a point where Texas is just no longer financial, like economically it's not no longer the big discount and cost of living that it used to be, because you look at Tennessee's growing faster than Texas now, because I think Tennessee, I mean, this has to be about the cheapest state to live. I mean, not because I live here, but I can't imagine a state being cheaper than this. And so I think a lot of people that want the cheapest are thinking here. So Texas, I can see it maybe, I mean, I think Texas kind of has to stay reasonably affordable, because if it gets, no offense to Texas, but if it got as expensive in Dallas as it is in San Diego, I mean, nobody would live in Dallas for the same price as San Diego. So I think it kind of has to be relatively inexpensive, and it's not. Austin is way too expensive for the wages. Colin, thank you very much for the super chat. French Glen, never heard of it. Of course, there's almost nothing in Southeast Oregon anyway. My wife had a kind of a scary situation on a road trip there, a town called Burns Junction. Paris, I've not been to many countries at all. Canada, Mexico, 3 in the Caribbean, that's it. So, but Germany and Morocco in March. Yeah, Canada, as expensive as California is, I think British Columbia is even more expensive. Houses in Vancouver I cannot believe how much they cost. I don't know who can afford them. I don't know if it's a lot of this moving out there or what, but it's, because, I mean, you can't even afford to move from California to Vancouver. I mean, that's how expensive it is. I mean, you probably have to sell a house in San Francisco or in Malibu or something to be able to afford something even remotely equivalent in Vancouver. Hey, Cope, I'm trying to catch up. I want to answer as many as possible, so they come up faster than I can answer them. Spinach Buoy, Fort Wayne. It's been a while since I've really spent much time there. I know there was a pretty good bump in economic growth here during 2020, during the worst of the pandemic, because this is a couple of major RV makers are here. And so people were just getting in their RV and driving around. So I think there was a big, like a boom here for a bit, although I'm not sure if it's already kind of busted. But as far as other than that, I'm not super familiar with it. Yeah, Kentucky's cheap. Nowhere Illinois is cheap. That's something else that a lot of people miss, because, California, expensive, but it's dirt cheap here. Chicago, expensive. Illinois is high tax, but it's because of those really crazy property taxes. But the houses here they don't cost that much. So, I mean, it's still pretty cheap in Illinois. In rural, I mean, most rural places, except for the interior West, are pretty cheap. PNW Explorer, yeah, Washington's very expensive. The wages are pretty high, but Washington is somehow able to be the only state with a really high sales tax that doesn't have really high poverty. All the other high sales tax states, Tennessee, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Oklahoma, those are all 5 of the 10 poorest states. And I mean, it's pretty well known that high sales tax is going to keep the poor poor. Mississippi has a 7% sales tax on groceries, which is crazy. So high sales tax leads to poverty, but Washington also has well over 9% sales tax. So no income tax, high sales tax tends to not work very well for the poor. But I, somehow it works better there. I don't know. I think it's because they have a lot of tax on dividends for wealth, but it is expensive. But yeah, I talk about it so little because I'm just not familiar with it. Kyle E. Minnesota, yeah, I mean, it's one of those places where if it didn't get cold, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm a canoeist. I've always just wanted to spend time, a month, or just give me some time up there. Just haven't been able to do it. You know, every year this is the year. We'll see. But I do like Minnesota. Yeah, and the driftless area. This part of Minnesota is. I mean, this whole area is cool, but you know, their areas of it is nice too. Yeah, Brendan, the Rust Belt. I don't know if I would expect it to grow rapidly, but I do expect, for example, Detroit, the 2030 census, I anticipate that'll be the first census since 1950 that the population will have gone up. And maybe Cleveland and upstate New York is kind of similar to interior California, where it's not expensive. It's just that the city makes it, you know, overshadows the rest of the state. So you can still live here for pretty cheap. And some of these towns are pretty run down. Elmira and Rome are, you know, they've seen better days. But other areas, Chicago is hanging on in terms of population. It's never really dropped that much. The city has dropped, but in terms of the metro area, and I can't believe Pittsburgh isn't growing as much or more. But I don't see the Rust Belt growing a ton, but I do see it growing after years of not growing at all, of decline. Just any kind of growth is going to be good. I don't claim to be the Geography King. That's the name of the channel. I if I could, I would change it. Trust me, I hate that name. It's so stupid. All right. Burn shows up on Globes. Yeah, that's the thing about a place. It's in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing else to print, so you can see something, a little tiny town, even on a large map. Kaskaskia, Illinois. Man, that sounds familiar. I'm sure I've been there, but I don't remember. I do know Livonia, Olivia. I do know Livonia, Michigan. Not Marine City though. A friend of mine's he's a DJ and blues musician in Detroit, and so I go to all of his gigs, and it can be all over the metro area, including Livonia. Yeah, Minnesota, I like how they have no sales tax on food and clothes. I think that's the way it should be. Most states don't tax food. I think only like 10 do. But Minnesota, I think, is the only one that clothing is sales tax exempt too. Maybe there might be another one, but. Yeah, that is one thing interesting about this border, because Oregon is very high tax, income tax, no sales tax. Washington is the exact opposite. And so normally when you have a metro area on a state line, more people will live on the side that's lower tax. That just, makes sense. Chattanooga is right on the border. Georgia is a pretty high tax state, so everybody's on Tennessee side. You come to here, the Quad Cities, both Iowa and Illinois are high tax, so there's equal on both sides. But here, everybody is, the vast majority are on the Oregon side, even though it's a much higher tax area. I know Vancouver, Washington is kind of a, gets a bad rap, but it's cheaper. So I'm just kind of surprised that I don't like sales tax, but still your overall tax burden is higher in Oregon than Washington, so I just find that pretty interesting. Richard Fernandez, bourbon capital of the world. I'm assuming it's in Kentucky, but I don't know. It might be there's some town in Indiana right on the border that has a lot of bourbon there as well. Evansville, I like Evansville, Indiana. It's a town here on the river. It's not growing too much, but I do kind of like it. It's I like it when the town's a little bit rough. I don't want it to be too squeaky clean. I like a little bit of rough edges. But it's got a nice downtown. It's been doing some good things. Jake, as far as the countries, if I could go, I mean, Southern South America, I'd really love to see Chile and Argentina. I'd love to see New Zealand, Oman. I mean, Morocco, we get to see Morocco in a couple of months. Yeah, I mean, honestly, anywhere. I just want to travel. I want to see as much as I possibly can. But I'd like to see, if ever given the opportunity, to see one or two countries on multiple continents as opposed to just seeing all of one continent. Dunbar, West Virginia. I know a lot about Dunbar because my in-laws live there. And so, Snowman, do you participate in the toilet bowl parade every Thanksgiving? That's one of the silliest things I've ever seen. It's literally people make floats have like an ATV, but they'll make it look like a toilet, and they have a parade of these toilets. It's pretty West Virginia. But yeah, Dunbar, interesting town. It's a little rough. It's a little rough, but it's all right. The house is right along the river. Can be kind of nice, but nice scenery. Very nice, pretty area. Yeah, North Alabama, Huntsville here is I do think underrated. It's been growing. It's a kind of a high tech, like aerospace high tech. NASA's there. As an army base there, that's kind of a high tech kind of army base, like the computer kind of stuff like that. Yeah, it's a nice area. It's an hour and a half from Chattanooga, and honestly, I think Huntsville might be growing a little bit faster than Chattanooga, which is kind of surprising, but there are more jobs in Huntsville. Chattanooga isn't really known for its great job market. All right, so I'm sorry, I can't go over all these, so I'm trying to keep up. Yeah, Pittsburgh is cheap. Yeah, it's surprisingly cheap. That's why I don't understand why it's not growing. That does have some high tech jobs there. Google has a big presence there, although a lot of layoffs in high tech right now. But oh yeah, Adrian, if I do the Boundary Waters, I would prefer to go in September actually. After it's cooler at night, the days are still long before the equinox, and there would be less people out there. That's if I could go whenever I want, I would choose September. Thank you, Gong Zero. I do appreciate that. El Greco, it was silly. I started this channel. It was just going to be just me talking about road tripping. That was the entire channel was going to be just travel and road trip. So the idea was call it Geography King. So if you want travel info, get it from a nerdy kind of thing, as opposed to kind of a mainstream travel thing. But then once the videos became actual just geography, then the name doesn't work well. It sounds, it's cringy. So I try to, I don't know. I don't know. I don't like the name. I would change it if I could. It was a joke a long time ago because I won a geography quiz bowl thing 2 years in a row, and the guy was like, "Oh, it's the Geography King." But I don't know. I'm married to it now, so it could be worse. I wanted to be Geography Geek. That's what I wanted. Somebody took it. Somebody's Geography Geek. So. Well, to be fair, Terminal, when you post videos as low budget as mine, you do not expect the channel to grow. I just didn't really, I never thought the channel would even have more than just a few hundred subscribers. It was just so, I mean, it's just me talking over a slideshow. So I just never expected it to grow. So I was always going to keep it super, and then all of a sudden it just started growing. So. Oh, okay, Cascade. Okay, that's how I knew it. It's one of those weird things where it's, yeah, it's an exclave, or not an exclave, but an oxbow. Ricky Bobby, I think Texas is. I mean, I know Texas and California hate each other, but they actually have very similar tax structures because Texas, it just replaces property tax for income tax, and the sales taxes are about the same. So it's. Texas is lower tax because the housing values are lower, so but not that much lower. So unless you're a really high earner in California, you're not going to have a significantly reduced tax burden by moving to Texas. If you're rich, yeah, I mean, but if you're just a regular Joe, moving here is not going to save you a ton of money. You can get maybe a bigger house, but in terms of just having a lot of extra cash hanging around, I don't think it's going to be a huge difference. I know people that have moved from California to Texas and it didn't work out financially like they thought because there's other things like very high homeowners insurance rates here, very, very high. So some things you might forget it to think about. But if you're coming from LA or Bay Area, you can sell your house and move wherever you want just about. But for regular folks that don't have the money, it might be a lateral step financially, but from a employment standpoint, it might just, Texas might just work better for you. Your job might be there. You might prefer the climate or whatever. Okinawa, well, okay. I would not have expected to see a lot of American retirees there. I think it's the longest living people in the world are Okinawa, right? I think that life expectancy is like 90 or something. That's crazy. Stuart, I actually do have a spreadsheet of that info. I've got something coming up talking about that stuff. I have an older video about cost of living, and wow, is it outdated because it was pre-pandemic and everything changed. So it's a lot of it is still good info, but a lot of it is. So I'm going to redo that topic, and that's a big part of it. So I have this stuff. I'm working on it right now. Yeah, Russell. Yeah, you were one of the first pins, and it's still the only one. So, yeah, I'm not sure why. I mean, I like Oklahoma, but I think it's, just doesn't work for a lot of people, I guess. But like I said multiple times, is that this is not the greatest sample size ever. So, if we were to do something more of a general sample size, I'm sure there'd be at least a couple more here. I was actually, I used to hate Tulsa, but I think it's improved a lot. It's not the greatest city ever, but I do like it though. The most forgotten state. There was actually survey on it, and it's New Mexico. It was the one that most people left out, which I thought was very strange. I think just by the name of it, you would just kind of remember, there's one called New Mexico, but no, it's the most forgotten state, at least according to a survey several years ago. Shaq, no, actually, I have no desire to do the AT. I'm a big hiker. I love being outdoors, but I don't have desire for that. I think it's more for, you really want to accomplish something. That's like a huge thing to accomplish. And so that kind of stuff is important to me too, but not AT so much. But I do love hiking. I might do stretches of it. I have no intention of ever doing the whole thing. But thank you very much for the super chat. I do very much appreciate that. Bardstown, Kentucky. Okay. Do I hate that Tennessee is being invaded? I don't. I think Nashville is about the only place being invaded. I don't see much growth in the rest of the state. It's like it's here and the area's here. There's some growth here, but Chattanooga really isn't growing. It's so surprising because this was the spot people were supposed to move to. It's the fastest internet in the world. There's no sales or no income tax. You can be a big YouTube creator from California and make your wages here and no income tax. But it hasn't worked out that way. I think a lot of people that, if they're with somebody, a spouse or whatever, they move and it'll be cheap for one person, but then the other person can't really find a job. So that might be one of the issues here. I don't know. Overall top place on the Atlantic coast. I'm partial to Maine. I absolutely fell in love with it when I went there for the first time, and it just really, it's just my kind of weird people. I like it. Hello, Harlingen, Texas, down here in the subtropical part of the state. A lot of RV retirees down there. Hello, Winston-Salem, Piedmont Triad. Yeah, I like actually, when we moved to Chattanooga, one of the other options was Greensboro. And at that time, we were definitely more on Chattanooga than Greensboro. Although in hindsight, we might have very well done the opposite. Reverend Brown, Muskegon. Yeah, one thing that's interesting here is that this is the fastest growing part of Michigan, the western half of the lower peninsula. And Grand Rapids is a big lot of medical research and stuff going on here. And Muskegon is technically part of the Grand Rapids metro area. I think there's at least 30 miles in between them, but it's within striking distance of commuters. I don't know if it's going to fill in here, but a lot of growth because this is the part of the state that people from Michigan tend to like. So you've seen some people moving from here to here, but also people, maybe medical other type people, research medical devices kind of stuff in the Grand Rapids area that might prefer to live on the lake shore. I do like King Gizzard, but no, I'm not going to be at that show. Roanoke. I like Roanoke. Right here, so it's a couple of pins there in the Appalachians. Very nice. It's about the size of Asheville, North Carolina, but it's not as hippie and music and weird. So if you like Asheville but not the weird, then Roanoke's probably a really good spot for you. And Blacksburg, the college town for VTech, is right next to it too. Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate it. I'll try to keep it up. Yeah, Maryland, I do believe, has the strangest borders of all states. I mean, for a state this small to have this much difference from one end to the other, I mean, it's crazy. Especially when this area is like, what, 2 miles, little thin stretch here. It's quite interesting because you can be, Cumberland in the mountains is way different than Ocean City, even though the state's pretty small. All right, so now we have a Greenville, South Carolina, very Chattanooga-ish. I think Greenville might be another reason why Chattanooga isn't growing as much. It's a very similar type town. It's in that same category along with Roanoke, and I think I like Greenville the most of all those. And I don't know if it's still there, but Greenville had a really good map shop downtown. I like to think it was still there, but yeah, it's also really interesting because Greenville itself, I think, only has like 70,000 people, but then the county has about 500,000, and the metro area is well over 1 million. So this is probably the least metro of all the big metros because it's just a chain of small towns as opposed to one big blob of things running into each other. So it doesn't feel like 1.2 million when you're there. Hello, Tularosa. I was just there. Real nice. I was at the Blue, what's that called? The art gallery there, Blue Horizons or something like that. Yeah, I mean, I liked it there a lot. It's kind of not quite touristy. It's not quite where you go if you're going Carlsbad Caverns, White Sands, Las Cruces. It's a little bit off there, so it's tourist-ish, but not. I liked it. Yeah. Rebellion is definitely going to be a personal opinion. I think San Diego would be what most people, like the largest number of people would probably say San Diego, but I would say for me, Monterey. I think most people think that's too chilly. But people don't move to Florida because they hate the climate. That's why they're moving there. So people like hot, humid. It's not my thing. People like, Scottsdale and Palm Springs, and I couldn't do that. So it really depends on what your personal preferences are. I know a lot of people like the snow because I heard one Canadian say once that they love the fact that it gets so cold there because that's the only thing that keeps Americans from moving there. Because if Canada was not so cold, think how many Americans would probably try to move up north. Yeah, I do love Maryland's flag. That's a very polarizing flag, but I love how they know it's polarizing, so they put it on everything. I think it's great. Yeah, terminal. That's the thing, though. If San Diego prices drop 27%, people will go back. I mean, I would have a hard time believing San Diego would drop 27%. San Jose, definitely. San Jose is overpriced, I believe. It's nice, but it shouldn't cost more than San Francisco, even though it's about the same. It's okay. I mean, I think it's overpriced. San Diego, I think I can justify the price of San Diego a lot more than San Jose. There are no pins in Enterprise, Alabama. There were actually 50, but I couldn't put them all there if I had to take them out. So no, that's a pretty very rural. You really wouldn't be going through this part of the state unless you really needed to be going to Enterprise or Opp, the town called Opp. Majed, yes, I have been to Dearborn. Yeah, we've, my friend that does gigs, he's in Dearborn every now and then. Yeah, I mean, nice town. It's where Ford is. I think their corporate headquarters are in Dearborn. It's directly adjacent to the west end. Oh, Detroit, right there. It's directly adjacent to the west end of Detroit. So, like the west part of Detroit is pretty gnarly, and you hit the border, and it's immediately Dearborn. It's much nicer, and it's the city with the largest percentage of the population that is Arab. So it's a nice town. Maryland is expensive. I think it's the single most. I think it's the highest wage state in the country. A lot of defense contractors and government contractors, and just a lot of high wage stuff in Maryland. So I think that's why it's so expensive. Daniel, I don't love living here. I think it's okay. I think it's more of we've been here for 15 years. It's time to move on. But if we had just moved here, I think it'd be great. But I think you really have to be into the outdoors. If you're not into outdoor stuff, I think that's the biggest draw to the city. And if you're not into that, then it might not be as nice as you were hoping for. Scout, I do have something coming up about non-national park, really pretty national park areas that are not, pretty scenery that's not national parks. Norman, I've never been to Bradenton. I hear that's the county just south of Tampa Bay. I've driven through it, but I've never actually stopped there. I've been to Sarasota. But yeah, very busy. It's Manatee County is growing a lot. The Tampa Bay area in general is growing quite a bit. I think, even though they just recently got hit with one, this is less likely to be hit with a hurricane than the East Coast or the Keys. So I think people see that, and plus you get the same weather and tax situation in Tampa as Miami. Leza, something that's underrated but is actually overrated. I don't know. That's a good question. I'd probably need to think about that one for a while. I don't know. Luigi, I've traveled a decent amount in Florida. Like I was saying, I think Tampa Bay is my favorite part of the state. That's where I would live. Or actually, just in general, this part here of the state, I think, is my favorite part. These are much lesser. It's got swampy beaches, not really the typical sandy beaches. Cedar Key is kind of a resorty type little town, but I just prefer the northwest coast, I guess you would say, of the state. I don't know what is the deal with these Buc-ee's things. I don't get it. I do a ton of road tripping, and I see these kind of things all over the country. I don't know why these Buc-ee's in Tennessee are like this huge. I don't know. When I'm on a road trip, I wanted to stop and get gas and get going. I don't want Disneyland. Gray. I think what's happening is a lot of people that are moving to Chattanooga are some of the folks like you, like, okay, Nashville's too big, let's go down to Chattanooga. It's definitely cheaper, but Nashville has way more job opportunities. It's a stronger economy, so I think that's why more people are moving there. They're just, Volkswagen is really the only thing in the city that's huge, other than Blue Cross or kind of jobs you have basically in every other city. I have been to Mammoth Cave. I like it a lot.
Where I first got into caving, my first time actually caving was the Wild Cave Tour at Mammoth Cave. So yeah, very nice. Yeah, Ty. Yeah, I don't know if it's Californians moving to Oregon. That seems kind of, because I mean, a lot of people are leaving California for tax or cost of living, but it's not any cheaper in Oregon. Taxes are actually even higher there. So I don't know. I mean, I like Oregon a lot, but I don't know where the people that are moving there are coming from. I know there's a lot of people moving to Bend. These are people that tend to have a lot of extra money. They're from other places with a lot of money. They can have a second home or just be able to live there without having to really have to work. But yeah, I don't know why it's growing the way it is. Because again, it's not any big advantage financially to go there. Lalo, my wife is from Lexington, so it's about a half an hour west of Columbia, so it's right about here. When she was living there, it was a small town, just separated from Columbia, but it's suburban between the two. It's grown a decent amount. It was growing a lot while we were there, and it slowed down a little bit, and it's picked up a little bit too. Yes, I have been to Las Cruces. I do like it. I really like that part of the country in general. Just this, El Paso, and just I love New Mexico, but I mean I consider El Paso as essentially like an extension of New Mexico. So I do really like it around there. Yeah, well, I don't think there'll be any pins for war anytime soon. That place is usually, when you see the stuff on West Virginia, you want to make it look as bad as possible. You want to show the worst of the worst. You're going to go to war. It's it's rough. It's real rough. I think is it even a ghost? It might be a ghost town by now. I don't know. Wintrues, no, I've not been to Alaska or Hawaii. Would I rather live in Michigan or Ohio? Where are you from? Whichever one you're from, it's the other one. Um, I would say overall, as an overall state, I prefer Michigan, but I think I would rather be in Cincinnati than anywhere in Michigan, if that makes sense. It doesn't make any sense, but I do really like Michigan, but I think also a part of it is that I'm just more familiar with it. I've been there so many times. We travel throughout when we go there, so I just feel like it's my fourth or fifth home. I'm not as familiar with Ohio, but I do really like Cincinnati. I do always have the drip on. See, people think I'm a geographer, but really my main knowledge is fashion. That's really my thing, not so much geography. All of my family is royalty. Yeah, Buc-ee's is in Texas, but they're right now they're going crazy in Tennessee. They opened one somewhere, and it was like this big tourist. It was crazy. It's a store that sells. I don't get it. I don't get it. I think for me, when I'm on road tripping, I don't have time that kind of stuff. But well, Jack, we're not about to leave Chattanooga, but I mean we're thinking about an escape plan. Not so much because we hate it, just to do something different. Um, and we're not parents, so we can hop around a little bit more easily. And it'll be more based on where my wife can go. She can't just be anywhere. Um, so the kind of stuff I do, whether it's geographic consulting or YouTube stuff, I can do that from anywhere. So I could, as long as there's an internet connection. Um, but we have very similar tastes. I mean, we both like the places like Santa Fe, Asheville, Portland. Those are all kind of similar places. That's a, you know, smaller towns that feel much bigger because of just the culture of it. Let's see. Winnetka in LA. Yeah, I went to Cal State Northridge. This is the northwestern part of the San Fernando Valley, and Winnetka is kind of like south of that. Um, yeah, I don't know the whole Wawa or Sheets thing. That's a Pennsylvania, West Virginia. I don't. It's like a rivalry of stores. I think it's pretty silly. Exhumed, thank you very much for the super chat. One thing people are often surprised is that I'm really not that much into history, and if you notice in my videos, I never talk about history except for like, you know, that building's old or that neighborhood's old. But in terms of like scholarly history, it's not really my thing. I just always was more into geography, and from a history standpoint, maybe like how borders have changed, but not so much like military history or, you know, constitutional amendments or that kind of stuff throughout history. But I do like Western movies. I just like Western stuff, documentaries. I do like to watch a lot of national park stuff. Netflix used to have a lot more nature stuff on there, but not so much anymore. Yeah, Terribles is another one that's kind of like Buc-ee's, but it's in the West. Worst Western state? I mean, most people would say New Mexico. I mean, this is not a very well-loved state nationwide. It's the slowest growing, other than California, it's the slowest growing Western state. I think it was even losing population, which is crazy for a, you know, interior West, which is the fastest growing part of the country. Obviously, I love it. You know, Nevada, it's tough. It's an economy based on fleecing you. So when the economy's bad, people, the first thing they're going to not do is gamble. So this economy always hurts the most when it's recession. It doesn't mean the state's bad, but I think it's gambling, I guess, no pun intended, with your economy. Andrew, I'll take your advice, or I'll just take your word on that one. Love's, the reason why I stopped at Love's is really stupid. It's a dumb reason, because they have Coke Zero, and I have to have soda with me, and a lot of the other chains don't have Coke Zero in their fountains. I'm not going to buy bottles. I'm going to just refill my mug. So it's a dumb reason, but although I do have to say, Love's is, man, they're like the Walmart of truck stops now. They are everywhere. I think they're so big now. They're one of the biggest companies in Oklahoma. Majed, the reason why I want to go to Oman is mainly for outdoors, hiking, caving. It's the top karst and caving area in the Middle East, and got really high mountains, beautiful wadis and canyons. So it's more for the nature. I know that the cities and stuff are not exactly the most exciting places, but TD, One thing I would love to road trip South America. Honestly, I would like to fly to Chile, drive down Chile, up Argentina to Sao Paulo and Rio. That's the main kind of thing I would like to do. Uruguay as well. I'm not sure how feasible that is. I'm not sure what the roads are like. I'd imagine in Chile and Argentina the roads are pretty good. Favorite town in Pennsylvania? You know, kind of like Wisconsin. When I was here, it was not touristy. I was in Jim Thorpe when it was off season, and it was nobody there. I thought it was great, but that's another place where I can see that's probably get kind of busy on the weekend. But you know, it's always going to be Pittsburgh in terms of cities. That's my go-to for Pennsylvania. I love State College as a college town. I'm too old for it now, but had a lot of good time and good times in State College. Verizon, thank you very much. I do appreciate that for the support. Fred, yes, Canaan Valley. My in-laws that live in Dunbar, they have a house in Canaan Valley. The family combined owns one. Really nice area. This is probably the nicest part of West Virginia, the least run down, I guess. There's towns called Davis and Thomas. Real nice towns here. Cool water, riverfront, historic area, some cool little boutique shops and stuff. And then Canaan Valley is like a ski resort area. A lot of DC people come over here. A lot of vacation homes and stuff there. It's pretty expensive, especially for West Virginia. Christopher, Netherlands, it's late. Or I guess actually it's early. We have 5 pins in the Netherlands on the map, so that's a pretty popular European destination. Average Joe, we've only done touristy stuff in Mexico. I've been up here, some of the border towns, but then we've been to Cabo San Lucas, isn't on this map. Puerto Vallarta, which is on the Pacific side, you go due west of Mexico City. And then we were just in Loreto back in December. Really, really nice town, man. We loved it there. But that's all we've seen in terms of Mexico. I'd love to go to Mexico City, but hasn't happened yet. I do not believe I've been to the Wallowa Mountains in Oregon. If I have, I didn't know they were called the Wallowa Mountains. I've driven the coast, the Willamette Valley, and then this road when you go from Boise to Winnemucca. That's whatever that highway is. So I've seen that, but never been up here. So I'm not sure where the Wallowas are, but probably not. Yeah, I would love to see Patagonia. I would. That's one of the top things I would like to see. Bucks County, PA, Philly suburbs, correct? JC, Cincinnati. I do like the chili. That's not why I would move there, though. It's very much like Pittsburgh. It's about the same size, about 350,000. The metro area is about the same size. Both industrial cities on the river, kind of Rust Beltish, but still kind of hipsterish too. St. Louis is also in that same category, same size range, historic river city. I like how it's very Pittsburgh-ish. Now you can walk everywhere. It's hilly, so you're getting good exercise walking around. The public transit is decent. The buses, at least, not trains. But yeah, I do like it. Although Cincinnati people, they might not like to hear this, but my favorite chili place is actually in Kentucky. It's called Dixie Chili. There's a few of them. They're on the Kentucky side. Hey, David, thank you very much. Jacksonville. I got my car in Jacksonville, flew one way to buy it, and drove back. Yeah, In-N-Out or Whataburger, I find that very strange because I think they want to compare them because it's California and Texas, and of course they're always going to compare stuff. But I don't think they're really the same level of, you know, In-N-Out. I think is more like Five Guys, Shake Shack. It's not really fast food. You're going to be there a while. Whataburger's drive-through fast food, Jack in the Box, Wendy's kind of thing, and I think it's okay, but In-N-Out's way better. But the lady that owned In-N-Out died, and her daughter's taking it nationwide. So you'll have an In-N-Out in New York and Seattle, Miami. They'll be there in a year. They're already opening one in Nashville. So I wonder how Californians will feel about that, if they'll turn on it, being that it's gone nationwide. They're also opening up Whataburger in Tennessee as well. So and Hy-Vee grocery stores. I mean, everything is coming to Tennessee right now that's not from this region. Ansel, I'm not from I was born in Sacramento, but I'm not from there. We lived there when my dad was in college, and so I was like 1 year old when we moved from there. My brother lived there for a long time. My older brother lived there for a long time. My younger brother lives there now. So I'm very familiar with the city. I like it a lot. I don't understand why it doesn't get more love, because it's cheap. It's like during the pandemic, Austin passed Sacramento in terms of cost of living. I mean, I was just looking. You can get a house there, a nice house in the 300,000 range, which is cheap for really anywhere in the country right now. 300,000 is a cheap house. This is crazy. Hardee's or Carl's Jr. Yeah. Edward, one of the best things about Chattanooga, you don't really ever hear about this. We're so close to the Atlanta airport, so we can fly. The Chattanooga airport is small. You go there, you check in, you're through security, less than 5 minutes. There's never more than one flight every half an hour, so there's never enough people in line at security. You get through it so fast. So we can get an Uber to the airport, get on the flight to Atlanta, and it'll be less time than just going through security in Atlanta. So one thing that's great about here is you can fly here really quickly, and you're already in the airport, no security, and you can just go anywhere from Atlanta. So that's a huge benefit for Chattanooga. It used to be really expensive to add that leg, but now it's really cheap. So that's one thing that's really cool. But the farthest you can fly from here is not that far. DC, Chicago, Detroit, I think are as far as you can get. Dallas on American. So it's not a big airport, but if you can get to Atlanta or Dallas, you can get anywhere. Grant, thank you very much for the super chat. Recently moved to Hoboken. Yeah, I mean, Hoboken's cool. I was there. I was much younger, and it's a great town to be young. I don't know if it's still cool, young, hip, party bar scene, or if it's, aged, or if it's more mature now, or what. But yeah, it's a fun town, right across the river from New York City. So you're basically you're closer to Manhattan than you are if you were in Queens, essentially. So, or Brooklyn. Yeah, Drain, one thing that's really interesting is on YouTube geography, every single channel is a white guy. Every single one of them. The only non-white guy I can think of on any YouTube geography anything is one of the co-hosts of a channel called Oh the Urbanity. It's a Canadian urban planning channel. I can't think of anybody else that is not white or not a guy, which is weird because in college and graduate school, geography is at least half female, and in grad school, it's probably 55, 45 female, and not all white either, plenty of minorities, but on YouTube, geography is just white dudes. So, whatever. Oh, Edward, no, we fly to Atlanta to get somewhere else, not just a flight of Atlanta. No, it's a 2-hour drive. We'll just drive down there for going to Atlanta. But if we're flying anywhere, I mean, Atlanta nonstop, you can get to the other side of the world. Yeah, that place Cane's, they're like the Krispy Kreme of whatever they sell because they've grown way too. They think they're bigger than their pants right there. Hopi, no, it is not too dangerous to road trip in Mexico. Not at all, because if you're going to drive, you'll probably stay on the toll roads. Their freeways, they're as good a condition as they are in the U.S. Now, if you get in some of the back roads, you go especially some of these border towns in the back roads, I wouldn't recommend that. But when you go to Baja, you will see so many American and Canadian license plates. When we were in Loreto, I mean, we saw plates from so many of these states. We saw a ton of British Columbia and Alberta, and strangely enough, a ton of South Dakota plates. So it's a great spot to drive. Baja is a great drive. You can go down the west coast here to Puerto Vallarta. A lot of Canadians road trip down there. But again, I wouldn't take back roads. Probably not the safest thing in the world. But stay on the main roads and it's fine. It's freeways. All right. Carson City, Nevada. I've been there a few times. Not super familiar with it. It's a small town, state capital, but it's in the Reno metro area. So you could live there and work in Reno, or if you work for the government in Carson City, you can live in Reno or whatever. It's a very beautiful area, but if you are going to move, be very cognizant of wildfires. You don't want to move somewhere with trees right around you. You want to have definitely some what they call defensible space. So that's the biggest concern for interior western foothill mountainous areas. Just make sure you're safe from wildfires as much as you can. Yeah, Atlanta, IKEA in Atlanta. That's something that Chattanoogan's do. We go to Atlanta to the IKEA. Natalie, Reno, 20, 30 years ago, Reno was a divey, just gnarly, seedy kind of place with the main street downtown. Virginia Avenue was, where the tourists would go, but the rest of town was kind of gnarly. It's been hipsterfied and it's much more expensive. It's very nice, but it's not cheap. MW, yes. San Jose is perhaps the most boring big city in the country. It really is boring. If you like to party, music, art, San Jose is not the city. It's a tech city. It's a people at home on computers. It's a very nice city. I mean, I think it's the safest big city in the U.S., but it's essentially a giant suburb. It's like a suburb with 1 million people. It's kind of like Fort Worth. There's a lot of similarities between Dallas, Fort Worth, and San Francisco, San Jose. I mean, San Jose is actually bigger than San Francisco, but San Jose is to San Francisco what Fort Worth is to Dallas in terms of kind of its cultural stance. So Fort Worth's kind of boring. San Jose is kind of boring, but they're both also arguably nicer than the more famous city of its metro. Day trips from Atlanta. Here, this is a good spot to come for a day. If you like outdoor stuff, Cloudland Canyon State Park is beautiful. Fort Mountain State Park. Really anywhere in the northern Georgia mountains is really, really nice. And also the Georgia Islands. So there's a lot of cool stuff. And indigenous mounds at Ocmulgee National Monument here, really cool. Yeah, it's a an Okeechobee Swamp. That's not for most people, but I love the swamp down here. It's my favorite spot to go paddling. Um, so I always tell people that are from here, if you're a canoeist up here, you know, if don't let your canoe collect dust all winter. This is a great spot. Natural beauty, Columbia River versus Mississippi. I mean, the surrounding beauty of Columbia River is better, but I mean, Mississippi, the river itself is, is the Mississippi. Um, but I think just if you were to stand on the banks of either one, you would be more awed with the scenery off the Columbia River. Yeah, WVUer, in terms of drug cartels in Mexico, this is the one part of other than Tijuana up here, but this is the one part of the country where it's not that bad because there's so few people here. This is like the whole state of Baja Sur is about that big, and there's probably I think 300,000 people there, and almost all of those are in Cabo. So this area here is just desolate, and there's nothing there at all. It's kind of podunk really. So there just isn't enough people here for the drug cartels to even waste their time. Yeah, it's if you are worried about Mexico, but you're curious, this is the place you want to go because it's authentic. It's not super touristy, and it's super chill, laid back, safe. South Dakota plates are what you get when you live internationally. Is that like a thing? Because that would make sense if there's a thing because I was like, there's some kind of South Dakota pipeline to Baja. So that would make sense. I would love to road trip Arctic areas too. I mean, I've never done this. I would love to do this and then go up Fort St. John up into Yukon and into Alaska, but that's a different type of road trip. You really need to set aside some time for that one. But yeah, I would definitely love to see the more Arctic areas. Hey Riley, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. Reno's still kind of sketchy. I mean, I'm sure it still is, but it was pretty gnarly. It was really red lighty before. Norman, I did not go to Springfield, Massachusetts, Springfield. I drove all throughout a lot of the state, but not right there. That was like the one part I didn't, so I can't say for sure. But I do think it is kind of one of the poorest cities in the state. Hopi. Yeah, I'm glad. That's really cool. That means a lot to hear that. Hope you have a great trip. San Angelo, Texas is a sleeper town. It is. Plot my home into any biome. Man, I'm definitely a dry grassland, savanna kind of, East Africa, California kind of thing. That kind of, no water, but nice weather. Jamie went to the southernmost point anywhere in the U.S. I don't know. That's a good question. It would either be the southern end of the Big Island, or I don't know. That's a good question. I should know that, and I don't. I have been to Wall Drug. It's a interesting spot. It's definitely a cheesy tourist trap, but it's still worth seeing. The Kazakh steppe, I would love to see it. I'm fascinated by Central Asia. I would love to go to Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, and I'm just fascinated by it. I think Atlanta's growth isn't as much as Nashville, but it's been growing for a lot longer, and it's just three times larger anyway. So, so Atlanta is it is continuing to grow, but I don't think Nashville was as ready for it. Atlanta is still crowded and congested, and Atlanta's still living in the days where if we just widen this freeway to 12 lanes, it'll be faster. But Nashville, I think most people say it's growing too fast. Kind of like Austin, there's been too much housing, too many companies, too many jobs before any infrastructure was ready. So, and just think, Austin, you haven't even had that Tesla thing open yet. So that's just one more thing with thousands more jobs. So that's just, there's something making weird noise over here. I don't know what it is. South Point, Hawaii. Okay. That's probably what I would have assumed. Lander, I've been to several reservations. I've been doing this for a while, so my voice is going out. I don't usually I'm not one to, make fun of really bad, poor areas, but if this is it. This is the absolute poorest part of the entire country. This is the Pine Ridge Reservation of the Ogallala Sioux. It's depressing. It's really bad. But this area is not well off either. And I hate to say it, but the reservations that are the most well off are the ones with the big casinos. Those tend to be just doing a little bit better. So that's an easy way to make some money. I mean, ask Nevada. Their whole economy is based on gambling, so it's a way to get some money. Evolving Brain, the 5 best bridge cities. I don't know, what do you mean by best? Like best looking bridges? I mean, if people talk about bridges, they're going to probably mention Pittsburgh first. Although I did mention in my video about Pittsburgh that it's not really the city with the most bridges. It's kind of a urban legend or myth or whatever. But there's a lot of bridges there. But I think what I like about the bridges there is that they're all gold. I love how Pittsburgh has like a color scheme. It's like black and gold is the city's scheme. So, I mean, I love the Golden Gate Bridge. Really nice. Yeah, one thing about bridges, though, is that if you notice, all of the new ones look kind of the same. They're all that white with I don't know how to describe bridges, but they all look the same, which is great from an engineering and cost standpoint, but they all end up looking the same. So it's not really cool when you have the exact same bridge in every city. But yeah, I don't know. One thing I liked about Milwaukee was they had like an elevator, like a drawbridge. We normally do that, but they had one that was like an elevator. I thought that was very strange. I'd never seen that before. So that was a pretty cool bridge type thing. And it's not a bridge city, but I hate this thing. This thing is the scariest bridge in America right here. The connecting the peninsulas in Michigan. But in terms of like best bridge city, it would probably have to be New York, right? Just the most iconic, and I don't know. I have not actually been to the Kaplan volcanic area, so no, I have not been there. Scout. That's a deep question. What place would I want to experience the most for the first time again if I could forget? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. That's a tough question. That's a deep question. I need more time to think about that one. Brian, get out of Louisiana. Well, if you're Louisiana to mountain towns, that's about as opposite as you're going to get. If you're looking to go to a good mountain town, go to one that doesn't have any pins. I mean, these are all great places, but if you're really looking to see some West and, you know, get the really good Western culture and just without it, if you don't need bougie kind of shops and, you know, if you like the booze, you know, Jackson, these towns here, up here, that's all very nice. But if you just want the Western, you know, kicking up some dirt kind of stuff, I like it here. Ely, I mean, even Scottsbluff, Nebraska isn't mountainous, but it's Western. It's pretty cool. And interior Western towns that aren't really touristy or resort towns can be pretty cheap. Hermiston, Oregon, Don. No, that's here somewhere, I think. Never been there. I haven't driven that I-84. I've not gone that way. So no, I've not seen it, but I've seen photos of the Columbia River Gorge area here. I've been as far as the Dalles, there maybe, but not the eastern part. Caleb, is Montana still worth moving to? Yeah, sure. I mean, everywhere is worth moving to, depending on your preferences. Now, if you wanted to go to Bozeman or the Glacier National Park area, it's going to be really expensive. You're going to be fighting celebrities. I mean, Bozeman has been taken over by celebrities, and same with up here. But there's a lot of smaller towns that are not cheap or not expensive. I mean, there's a town called Butte. It's kind of a dumpy town. I like it, though. I like a little bit western, rough, a little bit. But one thing about Montana that you might be surprised, it's actually a fairly high-tax state. So I think that's why you don't have as many, like, normal people moving there. A lot of people with a bunch of money are moving there. But there aren't, you know, it's not a cheap state. So it's not one of those ones like Texas or Florida that people are moving to for expenses. I think it's people that can afford to live somewhere nice like that, or, you know, beautiful like that. Mike, thank you very much. I always appreciate comments like that. Mike Noobs. Yeah, I've been to Barstow many, many times. I mean, you kind of have to, yeah, everybody, you have to go through it. It's right here. So I-40 goes this way, it goes right to it. I-15, you have to go through it. I mean, whenever I drive, I mean, more often than not, I'm going through Barstow, and it is just I mean, it's not the nicest part of California. Although I mean, I don't know. I would like to see just invite the casinos. The state, go to Vegas. Hey, we'll give you guys land in Barstow. Open up your casinos here. A lot of these ones are falling apart. Open up a new one here. We won't even tax you. We don't want your tax money. We just don't want people wasting money in Nevada. I don't know what Barstow can do though. It really should be like the solar energy capital of the world. I mean, but it's a downtrodden major drug. Yeah, it's a rough place. Yeah, Missoula is less expensive than Bozeman and the Glacier area. It's a college town. I like Missoula more than Bozeman. It's not as trendy. It's not as celebrity-ish. Evolving Brain, best city to stay for a week in February. If you're thinking you want to go somewhere because it's warm in February, then it really depends on what you like. If you want something more fun, February I think is the best month to go to New Orleans. It's before the height of Mardi Gras, but it's still kind of going. But it's before spring break. It's after the Super Bowl and sporting events in January. So if you want to see New Orleans, I think February is the best month to go. If you want something less, than New Orleans, then, down here, this part of Texas, Marathon, Alpine, you want just desolate peace and quiet in the winter is real nice. Just really anywhere in the rural Southwest if you just want just peace and quiet. Yeah, Don, they've been talking about this high-speed rail line, just a quick LA to Vegas thing, but California doesn't want to pay for it. They don't want to make it easier to get people to go to Nevada to blow money. So what's happening is the casinos are privately funding this one. They're calling it the Gamblers Express or something. That's like the nickname of it. It would make sense, but I don't know. If the casinos are paying for it privately, then obviously that's who's going to benefit from it. CK, New England or the Upper Great Lakes? Man, that's tough. That's tough. Man, really cold or really snowy? I'd probably rather live in New England. Like Maine or Vermont, Boston if I want to do a big city. But I like the upper Midwest too. Those are, yeah. Yeah, Seattle probably not the best place in February. Unless you like it gray. Robert, there are a lot of border crossings. A ton. There's at least 4 or 5 in California, several in Arizona. I think there's 3 here and several here. So there's quite a few. The biggest ones are San Diego, Nogales, El Paso, Laredo, and Brownsville. I have been to Golden, Colorado. That's where the Coors Brewery is. We did the tour of the brewery. Yeah, nice little town. It's got the howdy, welcome to Golden, Colorado sign. It's right next to Denver, but it's a suburb. It doesn't really feel like a suburb. Yeah, Nevada, gambling but no lottery. They want you spending the money in the casinos, not out of the convenience stores. Yuma, Arizona, worth visiting? I think everywhere is worth visiting, but if you're looking for excitement, that's not going to be the place. If you want to experience what is literally the sunniest city in the country, and you want to see or want to feel like incredible dry heat, out of curiosity, then yeah, but it's kind of a boring town. There's not much going on there. Yeah, Edward, I'm going to shut it down a little bit. I tend to get carried away on these streams. I just keep going. Gregory, every state, every city. I mean, I think every city went all in on cars in the mid 20th century, but it's hard to say that was, in hindsight, you can say they probably should have planned better at the time. It was exciting. We have these new cars that are better and more technologically advanced, and we have these interstates, so clearly it's going to be cars. I mean, in hindsight, we would have probably done things differently, but I don't know if there's any town that, I don't know, it's hard to, I don't think there's any town that shouldn't have been built just because of it's planned out properly, but yeah, I don't know. I.e., Albany, Georgia. It's not my favorite part of the state. It's down here a little bit. It's it's an okay place, but it's not like it's a place you're going to go on vacation or go hang out for a while. It's 100,000 people or so. It's not much going on there. I have not been to any of the territories now. Yeah, Robert, Hyperloop, Underground. I don't know. That's way too technical in terms of transit for me. But there are some really good train nerd resources. San Antonio, I do believe, is the largest city with no rail, and it's just grown so fast. It's kind of like Michigan. The car industry didn't want public transit, so you don't have a lot of public transit in the Detroit metro area. San Antonio and Texas in general, the oil industry doesn't want you riding trains either. So it's in places where it's something, counter to what would benefit from trains is probably going to be fighting it more. Hey, I refuse to ask. Thank you very much. I always appreciate this kind of comments, man. That means a lot. International highway connecting Alaska to Russia. No, I don't see any point in that. It'd be fun, but I don't see any reason to do that. All right, I'm going to answer a few more. I'm going to end it at the top of the hour. Oh, yeah. A lot of people have asked, JC, a lot of people have asked for me to end the videos like I used to. I've been doing this thing as kind of a fundraiser because I don't like to have a bunch of ads or sponsorships and stuff. So that did cut into me doing that. But the thing is, I always mention at the very last 20 seconds of a video when no one's watching anymore. So when people don't know to do it, then you get fewer on. But then I can't in the beginning of a video cut when I'm saying, oh, don't forget to buy a pen and like, share, subscribe. I can't do that. No. So that's why I put the info at this at the very end. That took away from what I used to do. So we'll see. I'm always looking to change a little something, and I end up never doing it. So. Yeah, the bridge to Russia it'll reappear on its own. Well, I mean, we will have high-speed rail. I don't think it's. I mean, I just think we can't look at other countries and say we can do what they did. I think we get in that position a lot. This small country did this, so we can upscale it. Like, but it's kind of like a recipe. Some things do upscale and some don't. Some don't. But I think cross-country high-speed rail is going to be tough. That's a lot. That's a massive expense for that much distance. I think this type of high-speed rail, shorter distances, is better, and it would take a long time to build up cross-continent. That's because there's not a lot of people here. I mean, so that's a lot of track, a lot of infrastructure. That's billions of dollars in infrastructure, and I don't know. I think it'll be tough, but I do think high-speed rail within more localized regional things is definitely, it has to be that way. I mean, we can't just keep growing and everybody has a car, but. Jesse, of the U.S. territories, I mean, I'll go to any of them. Probably Puerto Rico, just because it's the most. There's most stuff to see. There's just a lot there. But you want to pay for me to go to Guam? Yeah, sure, I'll go to Guam. The Blue Ridge Parkway is definitely worth it, but if it's October, don't. It's like a bumper to bumper. It's you can see all that beautiful scenery. You don't have to be on the Blue Ridge Parkway, but if it's not the main leaf peeper time of the year, it's a great drive. Yeah, as always, guys, I don't know where the shirt came from. It magically appeared. It's made out of like that 70s polyester. Like if I took a lighter to this, it would just like go up like that. It's like, it doesn't feel good. Rob, I don't think anything's going to overpopulate New York. Not in the U.S., I don't think. L.A. was on pace to pass New York in terms of metro size, but it's, the past few years, and even before the pandemic, people were moving out of L.A., so I don't think anything's going to touch New York for something crazy would have to happen. Jack, my favorite national park. I don't know. I mean, I would probably have to say Sequoia, Kings Canyon, because I grew up right next to it and just spent so much time there, and I'm just a little more familiar with some of the woods and wilderness, and that just kind of, I don't know. So that's probably my favorite, but that's going to be a lot of it just because of personal experiences. Yeah, the Little Missouri River would be, Robert, that's a nice canoe trip. I would like to do the stretch up here, but the problem is it's dry. I mean, there's often not enough water to actually even be doing it. So the time to be, like you said, it has to be in the spring. But then if you do like a week-long trip in the spring in the Midwest, you have a chance of severe storm. I don't like to be in my boat when there's thunderstorms going on. That's just not really my favorite thing to do. Drew, I don't think so. There's a lot of doomsday stuff about the water scenario, but the answer is there. We already know what the answer is. It's all this out there, all the ocean. The answer, we already have it. It's just we don't have the political will to do it yet. So I don't think it'll happen until it's dire. Then all of a sudden, all right, now we can come up with the money for it. But I don't think it'll ever get to the point where everybody has to leave because there's no water. There'll be ocean desal before that happens, I would think. Team Sahara. Actually, I was thinking about doing a kind of a meta video, like on the channel and YouTube in general, but haven't decided yet. If you want to see Jordan, want to see the comet, you want to see any kind of astro stuff, you definitely want to be out here. One thing people in the East, if you haven't been to the West, or if you're on the West Coast either, one of the coolest things to experience, it sounds kind of dumb, but just the middle of nowhere in the West at night, clear skies. I mean, it's really a cool thing that if you live in the back East and you haven't been West, you might not even know, like, whoa, that's what the sky can look like. It really is amazing. The next boom town, I don't know. Things are weird right now. I mean, pandemic, working from home. I mean, we're only a couple years from that, and so who knows? I could hipster wise and say Detroit, but I wouldn't put any money on that. What state borders would I alter? I don't think I would alter any borders. I mean, I guess you could have like weird stuff like Maryland. I mean, should the eastern panhandle of West Virginia be part of Maryland, or should the Maryland panhandle be part of West Virginia, or should the eastern shore of Virginia be part of Maryland or Delaware? But in terms of changing borders, I don't know. I think they're fine. Most of them are lines of latitude, longitude, or they're rivers, or they're mountain crest or whatever. So they have good reasons for most of the boundaries. Some of these are kind of weird, but I wouldn't change them. All right, just a couple more. So I'm sorry if I don't get to your questions. Roblox. How many spots in the U.S. can you get to Canada by heading? I don't know. I need to think about that one for a while. Yeah, I mean the Eastern Oregon thing to Idaho. I think the funniest part of it is that they think Idaho would want them. It's like they don't want you. Drew, my favorite skyline, I mean, as cliche as it is, it's New York. I mean, I love Chicago. Chicago's has, per capita, individually better architecture, I think, but that Manhattan skyline, that's just, man, that's something. That's a different level. An original delight. Thank you. I appreciate that. I hope the trip just goes well. I have been whitewater rafting, but it's not something I do too often, Nick. George, Albuquerque, it's I think what might be is 923 might have been the census and 955 is now. I don't know, but that would be a lot of growth for Albuquerque in just 2 years. So I'm not sure exactly, but I would guess it's closer to the million. I'd say 955 is probably closer. All right, guys, I hate to do it. I know there's a lot of questions here, but I can't do them all. All right. So thank you guys for joining me here. It's been a good 3-hour stream. It's always fun. I haven't done one of these in a while. I will get back to doing them more often. And so I really do appreciate all the super chats, guys. I appreciate all the support and the positive comments and stuff. And I'm gonna keep posting. So hope you guys can check out the future videos and enjoy those too. So hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night. Good evening, and yeah, later.